What's going on with this shit? No.
I'm Dr. Justin Sledge, and welcome to Esoterica, where we explore the arcane in history, philosophy, and religion. One of the most difficult aspects in starting to study Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah is getting a handle on just how those ideas developed over time. It's tempting to think that, for instance, Kabbalah has just always existed in the form that we have it, or that Kabbalah is just one thing at all. Of course, neither of these positions is really tenable. Such notions developed greatly through the ages and are still developing. And there are now, and there have always been, numerous mutually exclusive schools of Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. This class is meant to serve as an introduction to Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah from the point of view of its incredibly complex development from the prophets of ancient Israel and to the rise of modern Hasidism in the 18th century. Of course, this series isn't meant to be exhaustive by any means, but only should serve as a springboard for deeper study and reflection, and hopefully it will also enable you to situate developments in Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah in their historical and cultural context, and hopefully embolden you to dive into the primary texts, which are admittedly as sublime as they are obscure. Let me express my gratitude to Congregation Tchia for allowing me to use these lectures to reach a larger audience here on Esoterica. If you want, you can find the entire series under the playlist Entering the Garden, Introduction to Jewish Mysticism and Kabbalah. I'll be uploading them over the next few weeks, or if you find these episodes after autumn of 2021 and you want to watch the entire series, you can find them in that playlist. If you find this series on Kabbalah interesting, I'd hope you check out my other content on topics in esotericism, and perhaps consider supporting the production of free academic and scholarly topics in occultism, hermetic philosophy by joining my Patreon or perhaps with a one-time donation. You can find those links below, and I really appreciate your consideration. Now, let's enter the garden of Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. All right, everybody. I really can't believe I'm saying this, but after 13 sessions, we are now on session 14 of this, what was supposed to be a 9-series exploration of Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. And of course, 14 sessions is still too few. I could basically keep teaching this class one day a week for the rest of my life and still not exhaust all the things there are to say about Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. And I'll be very honest, this last session is going to in some ways be the thinnest because this is where my expertise really runs out. And I'll be very frank about that. It's just honestly the case that my expertise, I hit a wall, and my wall really is really with Hasidism. I don't know as nearly as much about Hasidism as I probably should. I'm still learning about Hasidism, and everything from roughly the 18th to the 21st century is where my gap is. Everyone has gaps in their knowledge, and it's important to acknowledge the gaps in our knowledge, not to pretend we know things we don't. And it's definitely from Hasidism forward that's the real gap in my knowledge. Not that I don't know anything, but there are certainly people out there who know a lot more than I do. In fact, I've just invited a good friend of mine to do some talks, maybe at least a talk at Congregation Korea about Hasidism, because I really do feel like I gave it short shrift and it deserved a lot more attention, a lot more deep attention than I gave it. And so I reached out to a good friend of mine who knows a lot about Hasidism to maybe do a lunch and learn. So we'll see if that works out. But at any rate, welcome to I would say welcome to the end, but it's not the end. It's welcome to the ellipsis, the ... Because, of course, Kabbalah is not going to go away anytime soon. Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah is doing actually a lot better now in the early part of the 21st century than it was doing in the middle of the 20th century. In the middle of the 20th century, I would say that Kabbalah, in some ways, was at death's door, and it's doing much better now. So in a substantial way, we're not saying goodbye to Hasidism or goodbye to Kabbalah. Rather, we're saying ... It's going to continue to grow and change. And I've heard really cool and exciting things about developments in the Haredi world, where we're in sort of new and dynamic Kabbalistic thought. And if we do end up moving to Israel-Palestine, at least for a few months next year, I'm looking forward to kind of getting into that, seeing what's going on in the Kabbalistic world there in Jerusalem. Well, as we marked last time, the sort of post-Shabbatite world is, I would say that it's actually more sophisticated in many ways than the Shabbatite world. The Shabbatite world was marked by a relatively thin understanding of Kabbalah, really. And that's part of why Shabbatite was so successful, is that people really didn't understand what was going on. They weren't really versed in Kabbalah. And when you read something of a very technical nature, you can be overwhelmed by it, very convinced by things that simply aren't really true or deep. They can sound deep, but in fact they're not. And I think that's true of a lot of things that went on in the Shabbat movement. It sounded Kabbalistic and had a couple scratch the surface even a bit. You realize that the kind of reasoning that justified the stuff that went on with Shabbat Tzvi and Frank was, I think, pretty facile. And I think that once people actually scratch the surface of it and realize, oh, this is just, gold gilding, they abandon it pretty quickly. So the years after Shabbatai Tzvi's apostasy and after the whole business, what you get is a kind of conservative backlash in the world of Kabbalah, and that shouldn't be surprising. This whole Shabbatai business is a complete disaster. And so what ends up happening is it's kind of a closing of the ranks. That is to say, in the Kabbalistic world, after this, what people end up doing is returning to the Kabbalah much like it was the period before Shabbatai, where things were a bit more closed off, a bit more guarded, a bit more silent, which I think is probably not always for the worst. And so the developments within Kabbalah, in fact, the developments in Kabbalah since then have been relatively conservative, which is to say, we don't see major developments outside of Luria and Kabbalah. There's never really been a significant post-Luria and Kabbalah. It's at some point become commentary and footnotes to Isaac Luria. And so that relatively conservative moment, that relatively conservative movement marks Kabbalah from about the mid-17th century all the way until now. And as we talked about last time, two major Kabbalistic schools develop in the aftermath of everything. One of those in Jerusalem, led by a Mizrahi rabbi, Sharabi, and another in Brody in Poland, and those two will become the central schools, so to speak, of Kabbalah, the big schools in the period after that. But of course, it's worth pointing out that Kabbalah also developed very highly technical Kabbalah in Baghdad, in Kurdistan, in Morocco, Marrakesh, was a huge Kabbalistic center. So Kabbalah continued to develop in the aftermath of the Shabbat tzvi business, especially in the Sephardic world, without really a hitch. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the Sephardi world was much more stable than the Ashkenazi world at that time in terms of social stability and Jewish education. Again, I think I mentioned this several times ago that a lot of the people that were really seduced by the Shabbatian movement were people who had only recently really come back to Judaism. And so they don't really anchored in Judaism in a very profound way, in a way that, for instance, the communities in Marrakesh, the communities in Baghdad, they've been there for 1,000 years, easily 1,000 years. And so when they looked at the whole Shabbat tzvi thing, they were like, no. So because they had a much deeper education. So the Sephardi world was a bit less affected by the whole thing. And so it's not surprising that in Jerusalem, who never accepted the whole Shabbatian business to begin with, they excommunicated him as soon as they could, that one of the largest Kabbalistic schools in the aftermath of all of that was developed. And as I mentioned last time, the two Kabbalistic schools take very different directions. The school, Beidel in Jerusalem, is going to take the form of really intense concentration or kavanah during prayer. And that school, again, will last basically until 1969, when the last adherent of that school dies, which is amazing how long. The school lasted for hundreds of years, although very tightly guarded, very disciple, student-oriented. And of course, the other is a Klois in Poland, and that is going to be largely influenced by Polish and Lithuanian Kabbalah and Jewry. And Polish and Lithuanian Kabbalah is going to be mostly remarked by its intense intellectual Kabbalistic speculation. And so out of that world is going to flow a mountain of highly intellectualized Kabbalistic systems that are going to basically try to do the work of systematizing Lurianic Kabbalah, especially vis-a-vis the older Quarter-Baron system, which I prefer. This period also saw, as I talked about last time, the rise of Hasidism. Hasidism is probably the most important, no, it's not probably, it's the most important movement in Judaism probably in the past 300 years. And Hasidism went on to spawn an entirely new system of Judaism, a new system of social relations, a new system of customs, a new system of dress. All kinds of things have come out of the Hasidic world. A whole new style of song, the Nigodim that I'm sure all of you are very familiar with, come out of the Hasidic world. And so it's from that world where we have a focus on extreme piety, but also piety that is meant to find the divine in the everyday. It's a piety in which God is lurking all about you, but you can't see God. The divine is everywhere. I think of the line from the Quran, which I can easily imagine a Hasidic Rebbe having written, where the Quran says that Allah is closer to you than your jugular vein. That image in the Quran has always struck me as incredibly evocative. And I easily imagine someone like Nachman of Breslov having written something just like that. So the idea that the divine is that close to you. The obstacle is just you. You and your ego are fundamentally you and your lusts and your desires. It's your desire to get rich or to have fame or to be loved by someone or whatever. It's these things that get in the way of your relationship to the divine, but the divine for the Hasidic movement is right there. You just have to do the work of bitul, of erasing the barriers between you and the divine. And it's in the erasure of those barriers that one can experience the divine in the everyday, including even in the movements of one's physical body, the sound of a bird. Some of the Rebbe's were even alleged to be able to understand the language of the birds. They would listen to birds sing, and they said they're singing, they're having theological debates, that the Rebbe's could understand the Fegelsprache, and that the Fegelsprache allowed them to hear the debates among the rabbis and the birds, which I always found a beautiful idea, sitting in the forest, listening to the birds, rather than just hearing like the rest of us, normie people that all we hear is birds. The Rebbe's, they don't hear birds, they hear the debates among the birds about God. And so I always found that to be a very beautiful example of Hasidism, where you're not just hearing bird sounds, you're hearing theological debates among the animal world. So again, according to the Hasidic idea, is the deep desire to experience the divine in every aspect of life, And to cleave to God, Devekus is the clinging to God, and you cling to God, and the way that you do this, at some level, by cultivating a relationship with kind of shamanic character in the Hasidic world. This is the Rebbe, or sometimes they're tzaddikim, tzaddukim. They're these righteous people who have a unique relationship with God. They're intensely holy. And of course, these rabbis go on to set up various courts, and those courts really operate a bit like royalty. They still do operate a bit like royalty even to this day. And so you have a loyalty to the Rebbe, to your Rebbe, and the Chassid encounters the divine primarily through the Rebbe, and it's in that Rebbe Chassid relationship that Chassidism really grows up into a sort of court-like spirituality that it is today. We'll talk a little bit about how that's gotten a little stranger, especially with the Chabad Lubavitch movement, which I forgot to mention much in the later slides, which I'll need to talk about that in a little bit as well. But we'll see how that develops. So, as we stopped last time, the sort of cliffhanger from last time was that what I think that no one really realized in the aftermath of the whole Shabbatai Tzvi thing, that as much as the Shabbatai Tzvi business was a disaster, no one really saw what was happening in the background that was a bigger deal. The same year that Shabbatai Tzvi converted to Islam and apostatized was 1666, and I'm sure as many folks in the room know, 1666 is a dynamite year in the history of science. It's the year that Isaac Newton discovered or invented calculus. Of course, he discovered and invented at the same time as Leibniz. There was a bitter debate about that. It's also the same year that Newton discovered the fundamental nature of light, and also he basically figured out Newtonian physics as we know it now. And he published all that in 1666. This is called the Year of Miracles. So at the same time that Newton is figuring all that out, inventing calculus and all this stuff, that's the year Shabbatai Tzvi converts to Islam. So it's difficult. I know that for many people, and for me too, when I think about Shabbatai's conversion, I think of it as a medieval thing. That's something that happened a long, long time ago. And I think of somehow Newton not having happened a long, long time ago. Newton feels very modern to me. It feels like I could just sort of, we could play chess with somebody like Star Trek. And they happen at the same time. They happen the exact same year. And so what's coming down the pike, and what I think that the Jewish world did not see in the aftermath of this entire Shabbatai Tzvi business, was the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was happening all around the Jewish world, in France, in North America, in England, and Holland, and Germany. The Enlightenment was developing a huge, completely new worldview that was dynamically breaking from what had come from before, with its emphasis on rationality, its emphasis on experimental science, its emphasis on extreme logic. And so we're beginning to get philosophers like Descartes, like Spinoza. Spinoza's philosophy rejects there's a God separate from nature. It's just nature, and nature is God, and God is nature. It's the same thing. We're getting the mechanistic philosophers, the philosophers that believe that all of nature is like a giant machine. If you study it carefully, you can understand how it works. And if you understand how it works, you can predict it, and therefore you can make it do things for you. This is incredibly mechanistic philosophy, which is in many ways really wonderful, and in many ways I think quite bad. Inside the Jewish world, they never saw this coming. It just sort of landed on their doorstep. When I say landed on their doorstep, what I really mean is Napoleon showed up. What Hegel called the world spirit on horseback. Napoleon shows up in Central Europe and even Eastern Europe. Remember, he marched all the way to Russia. So everywhere Napoleon went, recall, he brought with him these Enlightenment ideas. His army was a sort of enlightened army, as much as armies are ever enlightened. And Napoleon brought with him the metric system. He brought with him French revolutionary ideas. He brought with him the idea that if you're a citizen of a country, then you should have equal protection under the law. There should never be second-class citizens. Either you're a citoyen or you're not. And if you are a citoyen, you have the rights and privileges of everyone else that is protected by the rational law. Now, of course, I'm not saying Napoleon was perfect or anything like that, but he was a big enough deal that Hegel thought at some level he represented the very movement of Geist, the very movement of God, and the realization of Godness in the world. And of course, Hegel got disappointed with it later, but made a big impression on the young Hegel. And so this is at the same time that the Hasidic movement is taking off. And so when these two movements come into conflict with each other, come into contact with each other, there's going to be a break-off in the Jewish world where some Jews are going to become very attracted to Enlightenment values, and they're going to incorporate those Enlightenment values into the Jewish world. And that is called the Haskalah, the Enlightenment. And I think for almost everyone here in this class, and almost probably everyone hearing my voice, all of us are pretty enticed at some level by Enlightenment ideas. The idea of equal protection under the law, that you can't be just killed because of what you believe in, that we have a rational system of weights and measures, not that we do in this country, but most countries in the world, that the scientific, the very fact that I'm talking to you through this machine is proof of the success of the Enlightenment. So for many Jews, the Enlightenment was a solution to so many problems in the Jewish world, both in terms of the inner backwardness of the Jewish world, what they thought to be a superstitious world ruled by elite dynastic rulers who divine the will of God. Who knows how they figured these things out? And they believed in werewolves and vampires, and they believed in all this stuff and Kabbalah. Many Jews were very disenfranchised with that and wanted to rush into the world of the Enlightenment, and they did. They did. In fact, for the Jewish folks here, I imagine for many of the Jewish folks in this class, you are the children of the great-great-great-grandchildren of the Maskalim, of the Enlightenment folks, because the Enlightenment was very, very successful, again, for better and for worse. So what ends up happening is that this new kind of rational Judaism, the integration of Enlightenment values with Judaism became, incredibly polarizing. We also, speaking again for the Jewish folks in the room, we live in an incredibly easy world compared to our ancestors, because in many ways we can adapt both worlds. We can be religious and we can be in the Enlightenment somehow. Well, there was no middle ground in the 18th century. Either you jumped ship and you joined the Enlightenment camp, or you stayed behind in the shtetl and you stayed in the world of the pre-Enlightenment, or the traditional world, I suppose one could say. And so in the traditional world, they realized how much of a threat this was. They were terrified of this, and they doubled down on the traditional aspects of the world. And so in many ways, both Enlightenment Judaism and Haredi Judaism, that is to say the black hat, ultra-Orthodox Judaism that we recognize now, are both actually creations of the Enlightenment. So I know that sometimes Haredi folks like to pretend as if they're the legitimate continuers and inheritors of a discrete, continuous line of Judaism reaching all the way back to Moses. And if you ask them, Moses wore a black hat and spoke Yiddish. But I guarantee you he did. The reality of modern Judaism is at some level, all of it is a response to the Haskalah. It's all a response. Either you double down on tradition and you retreated into the world of the dynastic world, of the Hasidic world or the Livish world, or you drifted off into the secular world and you tried to make a go at either becoming assimilated or you tried to balance out both. And assimilation was the largest, the earliest, biggest movement. So what we have here basically is a choice between at some level assimilation, right? As much as those countries would allow you to assimilate, whether it's the French or the Germans, and as you know from the terrifying history of how this will go, it will fail. Assimilation ultimately was a failed strategy. It did not protect Jews in the end, and neither did God, by the way. It wasn't like the Haredi people were protected when the first panzers rolled in. And so what we have is a dualistic, a polarized world by the 1700s, in which there are Haskalah Jews, and then there are traditional Jews, and the world becomes polarized. It becomes increasingly polarized. Now, that's not to say that Kabbalah stops. If all the kinds of things that have not stopped the Kabbalah hadn't stopped them, whether it was the Crusades or the Shabbat Tzvi event or whatever pogroms would have stopped the Kabbalah, well, this whole Enlightenment thing didn't stop it either. And so many of the traditional centers of Judaism in the medieval or in the early modern world, they continued to produce Kabbalah as if nothing was going on. I mean, for them, they may have not even known. And so, especially in the Hasidic world, there is a huge outpouring of literature. This is the time period where the folks in the Chabad movement, who I'm sure many folks have had contact with, they began very rigorously developing their movement. Also, it's worth pointing out that the Chabad movement becomes sort of the intellectual center in many ways of the Hasidic movement. they become much more interested in the world of the mind and the world of the intellect as opposed to just the world of the emotions. And so the Chabad movement actually becomes much more of a rigorous system of Hasidic philosophy as opposed to just singing songs and being happy or whatever. So this is a period of people like Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, which I imagine most folks have heard of. Nachman of Breslov is probably one of the most famous Rebbes of this time period. He's of course known for his deep spiritual reflections and his existential torment he experiences. He was a person of great highs and great lows. I guess most historical people who we end up remembering are kind of manic depressive in this way, and so Rabbi Nachman is known for this extreme joy and extreme sorrow he was capable of feeling. And ultimately, he's going to give rise to the Neo-Hasidic movement, which we'll talk about in a minute, but also the Nanach movement, which I imagine if you've ever spent time in Israel, you will at some point encounter some Nanach guys, which tend to smell as pious as they are. They wear the knit caps of Nanach written on it, and they listen to techno music and dance around. And they're generally, I don't know what the right word is, pious to a fault, something. So those guys are out there and they're a big deal in the Neo-Hasidic world. Of course, also at this time period, probably one of the most important modern Jewish philosophers and mystics is also writing. This is a Ramchal, Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, probably the greatest traditional Jewish mind of the early modern period. And Luzzatto wrote a mountain of stuff. It's really, I was looking over some of it today and I was like, my God. This guy wrote 50 books. I've probably read one or two of them. He wrote 50-something books. It's an enormously huge output. But the Ramchal is known as a young man for having had a spiritual experience where he had a magi, or a spiritual teacher, begin to reveal him all kinds of spiritual things. He was relatively young when this happened, and you can imagine that in the aftermath of the Shabbatai Tzvi business, no one wanted to hear about anyone talking to spirits anymore. And so he kind of got kicked out of Italy a little bit. He kind of got expelled from Italy, and this led him on a journey through Europe. And in his journey through Europe, he ended up writing, like I said, a ton of stuff. His two most famous books are Derech Hashem, The Way of the Lord. Derech Hashem is probably the most systematic, collection or systematization of Judaism that incorporates both philosophical issues and Kabbalah into one system. Derech Hashem is a really, really great book. You can get it in Hebrew and English if you want to study it. It's a fantastic text that really does the work of combining the sort of philosophy of the day, although the philosophy of that point is a little outdated, but it's still a very amazing book. His other major book is a book on ethics, Masilah Yesharim, which is also just really, really great to read, and also you can get it in English too. And both of these books have gone on to become basically classics in the Orthodox world. There's even study sessions, so they study these books over and over and over again all through the year. So Derech Hashem and Masilah Yesharim are classics of Judaism. They become classics of Judaism, and again, they incorporate Kabbalistic and non-Kabbalistic philosophical elements into one text. Again, Chaim Luzzatto is probably, I'd probably say he's the most important rabbi of this period. At some level, he's probably the most important rabbi of this period, and so very, very important guy. Also, over in Eastern Europe, they're also continuing to do classical Kabbalah. A lot of what's happening at this point in Kabbalistic texts is a lot of systematization texts, which are trying again to systematize the Lurianic system. But also there are a lot of encyclopedic texts where they're just going through and trying to list things and describe what things are. One of the problems that comes along with more technical Kabbalah is that the Hebrew language just isn't actually that good at doing philosophy. There are a lot of technical reasons why this is. German is a far better language for doing philosophy, even than English. And Hebrew is a sort of clumsy language when it comes to doing philosophy. And it's also a bit of a clumsy language when it comes to doing Kabbalah, ironically enough. And so a lot of the technical terms in Kabbalah are very, very confusing. And a lot of what happens during this time period is the encyclopedizing of Kabbalah. And one of the more famous encyclopedias that gets written at this time is one of the books I would love to see translated. I have it downstairs, but I can read it. they are translating it, it's beyond me. But it's the Sefer Kanaim. Sefer Kanaim is an encyclopedia of the Klipot. The Klipot, as you may remember, are the shards left over in the process of creating the world, and those shards that are left over are actually demonic. Those are the demons that sort of haunt the Lurianic world, and it's an encyclopedia of all the demons. And so we actually get a systematic account of the evil detritus left over from the creation of the world here in the 18th, 19th centuries in the Sefer Kanaim, which is a fabulously interesting text. You can read it online if you want to read it for free. Of course, you have to read it in Hebrew. There's an English translation to my knowledge. Now, as you probably also know, in all of this, through the 19th century, the amount of anti-Semitism in Europe doesn't go away. Anti-Semitism has always been there in Europe. It's always been European anti-Semitism. Well, the anti-Semitism gets a new added dimension. As you might imagine, as Jews become more and more part of secular civil society, there's also anti-Semitism that emerges at the level of discrimination of Jews in secular civil society. Of course, the most famous and infamous example of this is the Dreyfus Affair in the 19th century in France. And so, with this uptick in anti-Semitism and the ongoing reality of anti-Semitism, there's sort of three distinct ideas basically about what to do about it. One idea is the traditional idea: double down on being pious and God will protect you. And a going theory for many thousands of years, but that theory no one's given up on. So one is double down on being pious and God will protect you. The other theory is that at some level, you just need to get out of Europe. Europe is just a death trap. We've been living in Europe now for 1,000 years, and for 1,000 years, it's just been a nightmare. It's just been pogrom after crusade, after blood libel, after witch hunt, after whatever. It's just that the Europeans are never going to accept us, and at some level, eventually they're going to try to kill us all. It's just a matter of time. Turns out they were right. So what do? You leave. You leave Europe. You pack your bags, and you leave Europe. And in the mid-19th century, that idea takes the form of secular Zionism. This is where Haskalah Jews, enlightened Jews, decide as a group that the situation in Europe is basically untenable and we need to leave. And this is the emergence, of course, of very, very nascent Zionism. Now, it's two things that are worth noting here about really early Zionism is that it was entirely a secular movement at first. In fact, it doesn't really get to have much religious backing until the mid-20th century, frankly. And so Zionism was a secular, largely socialist movement, although not all of it was socialist, not all of it was socialist in the way we would recognize it now. And that movement, while it did accept some messianic themes, and it was sort of apocalyptic in its narrative and in its the way it talked about the world, it wasn't really informed by Kabbalah. But I think that it was informed. If you read a lot of the language of the early Zionists, you will see a lot of the exile redemption language. You will see a lot of language that is coming in from the Kabbalah, although I think it's mostly due to social osmosis, right? So, to make that more clear, put a finer point on it. The Zionist movement early on was never influenced by Kabbalah directly, although I think that there is some messianic and some Kabbalistic ideas that are reached into Zionism, mostly because of sort of social osmosis, because of Jews, and they've been raised on a diet of Kabbalah and Torah. So that's one part of it. The other part of it with the Zionist movement is that, from a religious perspective, it was completely verboten. It was completely an Avera. The religious world rejected Zionism very early on. And when I say the religious world rejected Zionism, most of the religious world still rejects Zionism. It still says Zionism is a toxic ideology, that it's harmful to Palestinians, and it is irreligious. It's blasphemous. It's straight up heresy. And so this early, even the Reform movement very early on, even the Reform movement in Germany, at the very beginning of the Reform movement, they rejected Zionism in two major conferences. So even at the very far progressive end of the Jewish world, Zionism was very unpopular, at least to start. And it remains unpopular now, at least in the Haredi world. If folks have been watching the very wonderful show Shtisel, the soap opera, basically. You'll know in Shtisel, right, every time that they bring the Zionist up, Shulam's brother always says, he refers to the Zionism, he refers to Zionism as Shulam, the evil people. He always calls them the evil people. And so this is a thing that developed early on in the response to Zionism. So it never became religious until much later. In fact, I would say that in many ways it wasn't until Rav Kook, who we'll talk about in a minute, and it certainly wasn't until I think after the 8-Day War that in a big way you get religious Zionism. You recognize it now. I think it's a relatively minority movement until then. The Kabbalah, of course, continues to develop. Right? It's not like the Kabbalah stops. Slide. Oh yes, this is a mistaken slide, but there's an extra thing down here I want to talk about. I must have not mucked this slide up. But anyway, the last thing I want to talk about here is that in the 19th century, what also happens in the non-Jewish world is there's sometimes what is referred to as the occult revival. The occult revival was a re-interest in occult sciences, alchemy, and sort of a romantic interest in this stuff. And what you get are people like Ebenezer Sibley and Barrett, who are people who published the Magus. You have a bunch of people really interested in the occult again, and this sort of occult revival that occurs primarily in the 19th century also incorporates some older elements of Christian Kabbalah, and they ultimately develop a new form of Kabbalah out of Christian Kabbalah that gets referred to as the Hermetic Kabbalah. And this is a completely non-Jewish, occult-centered version of the Kabbalah, primarily used for engaging in ceremonial magic. So we have elements of Freemasonry being combined with elements of Renaissance magic, and then that being fused together with some elements of Kabbalah, and that develops what we now refer to as the Hermetic Kabbalah, which is another third branch of Kabbalah that is developed. There's, of course, Jewish Kabbalah with a K, there is Christian Kabbalah with a C, and now this develops eventually in the in the 19th century, 20th century, into Hermetic Kabbalah with a Q. And these forms of Kabbalah continue into occult practice all the way to this day. So again, in the 19th century, Kabbalah undergoes another mutation, although not a Jewish mutation, but primarily in the non-Jewish world, primarily in England, actually, where this occult revival takes place. And so the Hermetic Kabbalah is out there and it becomes very popular. There's a whole big world of people whose spirituality is wrapped up with the very sophisticated, very complicated system of correspondences, typically referred to as the Hermetic Kabbalah. So as I mentioned, right, just a minute ago, one of the other strategies, right, so we have one strategy, double down, being traditional. The other strategy is leave, go to Palestine or wherever. And the other strategy that I mentioned a minute ago, too, is assimilation. Assimilation was a very daring strategy, and perhaps I think one of the more difficult. I think that many of the people who did the job of assimilating, I think, get written off as traitors or something. I think it's really unfortunate the way we talk about that generation of folks. But assimilation was the really difficult task of trying to maintain two things at once. It was trying to maintain being Jewish and also trying to maintain your identity in a world that rejected you. Trying to be German and be Jewish, whatever German Jew meant. And the problem was that the Orthodox world hated you because they thought of you as a sellout, and the Germans never really accepted you either. And you could do anything, almost, right? I think of people like Husserl. Husserl was the great German philosopher whose son fought in World War I and still got fired when the Nazis took over. They never could become Jewish enough. In fact, even for the anti-Semites, for the Nazis, the more that the Jews assimilated, the more dangerous they were. They were almost hiding among you. And so there was something about this that the strategy of assimilation was always going to be at some level a losing game. But what ends up happening, at least in the academic world, is that, or at least in the religious world, rather, I should say, is that Judaism early on had to basically come to look like Lutheranism. They had to make a Judaism that looked as much like the Lutheranism of the 19th and 20th century as possible. And that movement became the Reform movement, right? Ethical monotheism. And if you look at the Lutheran movement and the early Reform movement, it is amazing how similar they are. Even the choir, it's just like the organs and stuff, right? If you've ever been to a classical Reform synagogue, the organs and the choir, and they even moved Shabbat to Sunday mornings and all kinds of stuff. They were desperately trying to fit in. And again, at one level, one way of looking at that is they're trying to sell out. But again, I think that the more that you accuse them of that, you need to walk a mile in their shoes and understand how devastating the reality of anti-Semitism was at that time and how awful it would get. And at the same time, I admire them. I admire the courage it takes to try to figure out a way of being German and Jewish, being French and Jewish in a world that you basically get rejected by both sides no matter what you do. I think it's very heroic and a very difficult path to march. On the academic front, part of what had to happen to justify the viability of Judaism is to justify it to the world of the theologians. And that's the theologians largely of Lutheran theology in the mid and late 19th century, which, as you probably imagine, as you may know even, German scholarship at this time was some of the most amazing scholarship in the world when it comes to Bible. This is a time period where critical source theory was being developed. This is a time where the Bible's being systematically studied, scientifically studied for the first time. This is where Hebrew is really getting into the manuscripts of these things. It's really a time period of enormous erudition. In fact, I would say that German biblical scholarship of 10 years probably produced more erudite scholarship than has been produced in 30 years of what we do. It's amazing. These guys, they just knew 15 languages. They just did. That's just how they worked. They just had the whole Bible. They just had chunks of the Hebrew Bible memorized. So the scholarship was very driven by Lutheran, pietist, very careful scholarship. And so what's emerging at the same time is the attitude to do the same thing in Judaism. And the attitude to do the same thing in Judaism was largely spearheaded by a group of Jewish Haskalah scholars, and this movement became known as the Wissenschaft des Judentums movement. And Raza, I beg your forgiveness if I mispronounce my German stuff as I go. So the Wissenschaft des Judentums movement, the scientific study of Jewish books, was a movement in the academic Jewish world to study Jewish literature using all the modern tools at that time of German scholarship to study religious literature. And they had to make a decision about what they studied, because what they studied and what they published basically represented Judaism to the outside academic world. So, what did they study? What did they publish? Well, Talmud. They focused their energy on the Talmud. Why? Because the Talmud, for one, is a highly systematic, highly argumentative book based in logic. They could argue that Judaism is rational because the Talmud is rational. The Talmud is a book of arguments driven by logic, and therefore Judaism is logical. Right? So we have the ethical components in the Hebrew Bible, and we have the logical components of the Talmud, and therefore Judaism is respectable because it's a paragon of logic. Well, guess what isn't paragonological? Kabbalah. So, what did the Wissenschaft movement do? Ignored it. Basically pretended that it wasn't there. Why? Because it was embarrassing. It was superstition. It was occultism. It was nonsense, made up, fraudulent stuff. For them, for the Wissenschaft des Judentums movement, Kabbalah was an embarrassment. It needed to be put back into the darkness of the Middle Ages because it made Jews look crazy. If you've been listening to some of the stuff I've been saying over the past 14 weeks and thinking to yourself, God, that sounds nuts. Well, it does sound nuts. And can you imagine a bunch of Jewish scholars presenting that to a bunch of erudite Lutheran scholars being like, yes, Judaism. We believe that God masturbated reality to exist. What? That's not going to fly, right? It's going to make them hate you. It's going to reinforce every negative stereotype about the Jews. The Jews are irrational. They're driven by superstition. They believe in nonsense. The Wissenschaft des Judentums movement had to make a decision, and the decision was not Kabbalah, Talmud. And so early on, Kabbalistic literature was largely put on the back burner, to put it politely. And as you might know, at the same time this is happening, this is also the same time that all of the movements in Judaism are beginning to form. The Reform movement, the Conservative movement, the Masorti movement, the Reconstructionist movement begins in the early 20th century. All of the movements, even modern Orthodox Judaism, all of the movements and movement Judaism in the non-traditional Jewish world, all of them look at some level to the Wissenschaft des Judentums movement, and they base their Judaism at some level on the Judaism being pumped out by places like JTS, by places like German Scholarship, by places like Cincinnati, the Reformed Seminary. And guess what? None of those places are doing. none of them are doing Kabbalah. Why? Because it's embarrassing. They do not want to look like crazy people. So the Kabbalah is totally sidelined for 2.5, 3 generations by scholars. Completely sidelined. And it's sidelined at a decisive moment in Jewish history. What is that decisive moment? The emergence of the movements. So if you grew up in a movement, the Reform movement, Conservative movement, if you grew up in any of the movements, their scholars were simply not being trained on Kabbalah. And because they weren't being trained on it, they couldn't teach it. And because they didn't teach it, it was abandoned in the movements. This is the reason why, for folks who grew up, especially for folks who are a bit older than me, if you grew up in the movement Judaism world, you've never heard about Kabbalah. There's a reason why. Because the rabbis you had never learned about it. And that's because the generation before them never learned about it. The generation before them made a decision not to learn about it. And that's what happened. Effectively, Kabbalah becomes decanonized by the modern Jewish movement. Modern Judaism basically decanonized it. So the Zohar, Sefer Yetzirah, all the literature we've talked about basically goes back on the shelf. And what comes back is Talmud, if you're lucky, but mostly Tanakh. That's the reason why you will never really see in the movements until recently studies of Kabbalah, studies of Talmud, even Talmud. I mean, for folks who grew up in the movement world, how often did you all study Talmud? How often was Talmud something that you would be encouraged to study or heard about much? See heads shaking, no. Yeah, even Talmud, right? Even Talmud was sidelined. And you can imagine, Talmud sidelined, then surely Zohar's going to be sidelined. So that's one part of the story. A huge part of the story is that Kabbalah didn't go away. They still did Kabbalah, studied Kabbalah in the traditional world. It's in the progressive world that it was abandoned. It was decanonized in our world. And it's only now limping back into canonization. And I think it needs to be recanonized more quickly than that. Of course, the other thing that happens, and it's this time, is in the mid-20th century, and there's no way to avoid the elephant in the room. It's, of course, the Holocaust. The Holocaust devastated, obviously, European Jewry, but in terms of Kabbalah, it really devastated the Hasidic world. And the reason why it devastated the Hasidic world, as you might imagine, is the Hasidic Jews live basically in these very tight-knit social networks. They are distinctively dressed. They look very Jewish. They have payas. They dress like Jews. Targeting them was the easiest thing in the world. They all live in the same shtetls and ghettos. So liquidating them and killing them, putting them on these cattle farms was very, very easy for the Nazis. So the Hasidic world was incredibly destroyed in the Holocaust. I think, unfortunately, and Roz would be the better expert at this than I would be, that the Hasidic world suffered apocalyptic levels of devastation in the Holocaust, just because of they were basically sitting ducks, and also their theology prevented them from leaving. So many of them, because they rejected Zionism, did not try to flee to Palestine. They thought it was religiously repugnant to flee to Palestine, because they were also tied to the Rebbe. They also didn't want to individually leave, right? They were tied to this person. And so if the Rebbe didn't leave, they didn't. And, lastly, right, they looked the part. When the Einsatzgruppe group moved them, they're there. They're living in that shtetl. And they're there with that Rebbe. And, it doesn't take but an afternoon of a really blackout drunk group of Einsatzgruppe to do the deed, to basically eliminate an entire Hasidic dynasty. And Chas v'shalom, that happened. It happened over and over and over again in Eastern Europe. Especially Hungary was especially nasty. I think 1 in 4 Samar people were killed or something like that in the Holocaust. It's just a devastating, apocalyptic story. And as you know, the only people keeping the light on at this time, in many ways, for Kabbalah are the Hasidic people. It's the people in Eastern Europe. It's the traditional people. They're the ones keeping the lights on. And with their execution by the beasts that were the Nazis, the light goes out. The light went out. And it was a devastating blow to Kabbalah. Now, luckily, our Sephardic brothers and sisters, Sephardic folks, they were still doing Kabbalah in Morocco. They were still doing Kabbalah over in Baghdad. Still doing Kabbalah in Northern Africa. So it wasn't like that the devastating blow that was dealt to European Jews meant the end of Kabbalah. But it is just important to say that the Hasidic movement and European Jewry was a very important center of the development in Kabbalah, and the Holocaust uniquely and profoundly destroyed some elements of that continuity. Luckily, they did survive. Many of them survived, and they would regroup. Some of them in America. And in fact, the two largest groups, Samar would eventually, so in fact, the Samar Rebbe, Teitelbaum eventually made his way out even before the war or in the middle of the war, and the Lubavitch Rebbe also made it out as well, and they refounded their Hasidic dynasty in Brooklyn, Holy Land, the real Holy Land, which is Brooklyn. So Borough Park and Crown Heights, respectively. You can go visit the Holy Land. It's just right over there in Brooklyn. You folks know this, right? That Israel is just a borough of Brooklyn. So the real Holy Land is over there, just around Coney Island. So the rebound, folks, the rebound. How does this all rebound? We have the Holocaust, we have the Haskalah, we have the Wissenschaftliches Judentum movement. How did this rebound? Well, it rebounded in a couple different ways. The rebound, in many ways, began with a young maverick philologist. People forget that Gerhard Scholem, also people forget that he was Gerhard Scholem. He got Gershomized later when he made Aliyah, but Gerhard Scholem was a young maverick philologist. He studied language. That's the reason why his scholarship is so top-notch. You can read everything in the original language. And Scholem made the crazy argument that Kabbalah deserved to be academically studied. It just deserves academic. It's part of Jewish history. We need to study it. And so in the 1920s, Gerhard would do all the heavy lifting of reading basically every single Kabbalist book he could get his hands on in the archives. Every single one. And being the good German scholar that he was, he did that. And unlike the Wissenschaftliches Judentum movement that rejected the importance of Kabbalah, Bernhard Scholem argued convincingly that there simply was no Judaism without Kabbalah. You couldn't imagine Judaism without it. Judaism was just as important, or Kabbalah was just as important in the history of Judaism as Talmud, as anything else. So Scholem argued over the time that Kabbalah had to be reintegrated both academically and historically into the history and thinking about what Judaism was. And this was by no means easy, folks. When Scholem, who was already an established scholar at the time, was invited to speak at JTS, give a lecture at JTS at the Jewish Theological Seminary there in New York, when he was allowed to speak, the justification for him being able to speak was that, look, the Kabbalah is nonsense, right? Kabbalah is Narishkeit. Kabbalah is nonsense, but, right, Narishkeit is Narishkeit. Aber the Geschichte des Narishkeit, das ist Wissenschaft. Right? Nonsense is nonsense, but the history of nonsense is science. So Kabbalah is nonsense, but the history of Kabbalah is science. It's worth studying as historical information, but God forbid anyone to be a Kabbalist. That's ridiculous. That, by the way, was coming from the most famous progressive Talmud scholar in 20th century history, Saul Lieberman. Probably one of the most important Talmud scholars of the early 20th century, the Talmud professor at JTS. Basically invented modern sort of quasi-secular Talmud education, Saul Lieberman. That's how Scholem was introduced. Can you imagine being introduced at JTS by basically saying, yeah, what you study is nonsense, but because you study it as history, as something we used to do, it's legitimate. But God forbid anyone actually be a Kabbalist. That's completely crazy. So Scholem really had to walk an uphill battle. He fought an uphill battle the entire time to get legitimacy for what he was doing, which is unimaginable now, considering that Kabbalah is so legitimate, so mainstream. But Scholem had to fight that battle in many ways on his own. Luckily, he was a very capable scholar, and he was able to do it. Scholem brought with him an army of students. He attracted a great deal of students, folks like Moshe Yedel and Tristan and other folks who have gone on to become themselves leading scholars in the world of Kabbalah. His students were also perfectly willing to criticize him, and they did. They made careers criticizing him. Folks like Moshe Idel really showed how important Sholem was, and also how incomplete Sholem was. And we have a whole new generations of scholars, Yehuda Leaves and Dahi Weiss and all kinds of running Maros. It's a huge group of scholars that blow my mind with every book that they write. And so the academic study of Kabbalah is landed. It is now totally legit if you want to study Kabbalah in college. You can take an academic level Kabbalah class, and no one's going to bat an eye. Sure, part of Jewish history. That's it. At the same time, there is an emerging, relatively small movement of religious Zionism, led by, of course, by Rav Kook. And he would eventually give rise to religious Zionism as we know it, although Rav Kook wasn't terribly influenced by, wasn't a huge Kabbalist, but certainly a lot of the luring themes of exile and redemption will play a part in the rise of religious Zionism. The most important, I think, Kabbalist to come really in the early to mid 20th century would be Rabbi Yehuda Ashla, Baal HaSulam, the master of the ladder. And the Baal HaSulam he would make Aliyah in Israel, and he would compose two incredibly influential works. The most important, I think, is his commentary on the Zohar, a text that he took, I think, 10 years to write, called HaSulam, the ladder. And this is a both introduction to the Zohar, but also a commentary on the Zohar. And he translated Zohar out of the crazy Aramaic that it's in into a very modern Hebrew to make it accessible to a whole generation of people who otherwise would not be able to read it in the original Aramaic. He published it in basically modern Hebrew, modern Lashon Kodesh Hebrew, and so it's much more accessible in modern Hebrew. So many people who read Zohar now in the Orthodox world, and also many people who study Isaac Luria are going to study many of his ideas in some level through the lens of Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, who also developed his own sort of like interesting communist theory. There's, in fact, I think a kibbutz that's based on some of his ideals in northern Israel, Calvinism. So Yehuda Ashlag becomes a very important, I think, probably the most important character in all this. Another character that I don't mention in this that I can't believe I left out, of course, is Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, blessed memory. Schneerson, of course, was the head of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, and what's important to know about him is that, well, he became one of the most important founders of the Kiruv movement, that's to say the outreach movement among Orthodox Jews and Hasidic Jews. So if you've ever been to a Chabad house, that's because Rebbe sent someone to make one, basically, at least most of them. And Menachem Mendel Schneerson founded this enormous Kiruv network of the Chabad movement, and he was just a hugely important figure in the history of 20th century Judaism. It's really hard to downplay all the really important things that he did. But one of the things that's worth mentioning here that's important, that will be important for going into 21st century Judaism, is that when he died in the 90s, it was already believed in his lifetime that he was the Messiah, and then when he died, people really began to believe he was the Messiah. And so there is a movement in the Chabad world, not a super big movement, I don't think it's as big as it was in the late 90s, and it seems to be mostly localized to Brooklyn and in Israel, especially in Chabad, where they believe he's the Messiah. Also, I have a mock here. So I have, so at any rate, the Menachem Mendel Schneerson was believed to be the Messiah, and I studied briefly at a Chabad yeshiva, and I've definitely met people who believed that he was not only not dead, but that he had been taken into heaven somehow bodily, and that he was going to return really soon, and that it really his return would be heralded by Jews adopting more Torah, and that basically he was kind of occluded, and his occultation would come to an end, and the Rebbe would reappear as the King Messiah. Of course, you can still go to Crown Heights, you can still go to Brooklyn, and you can still see crowns, images of the Rebbe's flag, which has a utility yellow with a crown that says Mashiach on it, Messiah. So there's this huge messianic movement, which again could be a whole class unto itself, inside of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, where they do believe that their late leader is the Messiah, and this is causing some serious problems in the Chabad movement, because because it is such a movement based on outreach. Although in my experience and what I've been told by folks who've grown up in the movement is that largely the kind of people that the SM
Louis, how are you?
Hi.
Excellent. Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, have you got a way of recording this?
I am recording, but I don't have a way to record on my phone.
Okay. So you're Rabbi Rothschild?
That's correct.
Right, and where are you based?
I'm based out of Irvine, California.
California?
Correct.
Under the irresponsible leadership of Gavin Newsom?
Some may say that.
What do you think?
Oh, I do my best to not get political, but I know that his term is up this year, and from there, hopefully, he takes some time off and maybe
I think he's gonna try and run.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. Have you got a way to record this and save the file and send it to me and I'll put it on my thing?
Well, like I said, not on my phone. Do you normally run podcasts?
Not through Zoom, no. I've only ever done it in person.
Oh, okay. All right. So let me see how we could do this. Can you screen record on your phone?
Annoyingly, no. Can you?
I don't have the space necessarily for the file. Okay, but that's all right. We can figure out something. Let's see. Well, first and foremost, let's get to know each other a little bit. And as I say that, maybe I can get a file over to you, or we could figure it out. Okay, so what kind of podcast do you have, may I ask?
Okay, so the first one was simply me doing a version of Family Business by Kanye West. Then the next one was a conversation with me and my friend James Weir and my friend Rabbi Rothschild.
Can you repeat that?
I recorded a conversation about Iran and all sorts of things with my friend James Weir and Rabbi Rothschild.
Yes.
And then after that, I had a conversation with the Nets. So got soccer over in the States, right? Are you a soccer fan?
To some extent, yeah.
Okay, so when I was younger, I'm a footballer for a team. So in the town of Bristol, where I am, I'm in the southwest of England.
Absolutely.
I met up with him. He's called Clinton Ellis. He's a lovely fella. And we had a conversation about football and things like that.
Okay, so this will be your fourth podcast?
This will be the 13th.
Oh, 13th. Okay, excellent. So you've done quite a few of them. All right.
Yeah, and the most recent one is me and my friend Matt Watts talking about tennis.
Oh, okay. Very well. Yeah. Do you know about the cryptocurrency Harry Potter Obama Sonic Canino?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's a cryptocurrency that sponsors me. They sponsor all my merchandise and such, and that's why I have this shirt on. But yeah, it's the name of the cryptocurrency. It's worth tens of millions of dollars. Apologies, I'm just getting my lighting set up, and then yeah, that's okay. We'll I'll figure out a way. There's a way in Zoom. Do you have just the standard Zoom plan? If you do, that's okay. I'm live streaming. Let me see if I can send you a link to Restream. Do you mind if I tell you a little bit about myself? Excellent, thank you. So yes, I'm Rabbi Rothschild. I stream my life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for world peace. I've been doing so for more than 4 years. Have you ever seen the television show Big Brother or the movie The Truman Show?
Yes.
Yes, excellent. So it's very similar to that. Essentially, I have more data archived on the internet than any person in global history, which is a really big deal. It's an emerging type of technology known as continuous human data infrastructure, and also continuous human activity data. So basically, studying a human from all aspects, eating, sleeping, behavior, I think will be of extreme benefit. Perhaps not just to AI in the future, but to generations. It's basically like a timeline or a time capsule of human achievement.
Like you Restream and Burbank in this analogy.
And yeah, that would be correct. Absolutely. Okay. So as for the recording option, I think I can send you a link and you can join. Uh, and so just one moment, and I'm gonna get that situated. So I appreciate your patience. So yeah, I've streamed as far north as Santa Barbara, as far south as San Diego, as far east as the desert and mountains, as far west as the Pacific Ocean, and like essentially, I'm live on not just one YouTube stream or two YouTube streams. I'm live on over 20 simultaneous YouTube streams, 24 hours a day. So I have over I have 2,900 people in my Discord. Of those individuals, we have people who live with me in the Discord as well. I don't know. Do you use Discord at all?
Occasionally, only when it was early AI.
Okay.
I was typing in code into this tool to do things like send prompts to make images.
Absolutely. Okay.
Also, I have a friend who's very well connected. He's called Rob, and he's writing a book on Harry Potter.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
I've written about J.K. Rowling's connections with symbolism and metal. What's the magical metal thing? Alchemy.
Alchemy, certainly. Okay.
Yeah, the connections, how she's formulated different structure inside the head. Taking notes. He's traveled all around England trying to find locations and find individual places.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. So I am going to. Can I send you a link via email?
Yeah. And you think this will be what then? We'll be saying more?
Yeah, yeah. It's also live streaming on YouTube as well. So you'll be able to just get the link from there to be able to upload. If I may ask, where do you normally publish your podcast?
On video form. I haven't got it connected to Apple Podcasts yet. I'm not sure how to do that. Have you got that out yet?
Yeah. I can help you with all that. Okay. So do you have your podcast on Spotify?
No, I don't.
Okay. Have you thought of doing it?
I have music on Spotify, but no podcast yet.
Okay. So there is something called Podcast Creator, which is a different app than Spotify. And you basically just download it, and then you can directly record there, and it will publish, and then it multi-publishes. So it will publish to iHeart Media, it will publish to Apple, it will publish to Amazon, it will, and then of course to Spotify as well. So you don't have to do the individual uploading to everything, and that just makes it really convenient. Okay, so your name is Louis, is that correct? Louis. Apologies, Louis. Okay, Louis, I just sent you a link to my Restream, and I'm currently streaming, as I previously said. So let's see if this works. I've not used it using these settings, but hopefully it will work. I'm live streaming on everything else, so and then I'm.
Do you generally have that file saved, and then you can send me the file? Is that how it works?
It will be live on YouTube, so I can just send you that link, and you can download it from YouTube. If you don't know how to do that, I can help you with that.
I know there's ways to download it for free.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's how I do it. I do that all the time. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Excellent.
Okay. So shall I go back up? I'll start that link up now.
Yeah. Let's try that. If it doesn't work, just can you leave this? Can you keep this call going at the same time?
I don't know. I'll try that up myself.
Yeah, please do.
Just go into it.
Okay.
I think we should probably start talking if that's the way to do it. I think we should invite each other on the phone.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm a writer in Bristol. I generally I'm writing. I've written screenplays, books. I have several books on Amazon at one point. I'm unpublished. I wrote one article for Area magazine that I got paid for that was years ago.
Okay.
That was called In Defense of Halal. Because they were drawing parallels between the way some meat is treated badly in this country and things like that, and then it just the parallels between kosher and halal as well.
Oh, interesting.
But I'm more interested. I'm extremely concerned about the issue of Islamization post the Ayatollah.
Okay.
Because the Green Party over here is doing very much what Zoran Mandani is doing in New York, which is getting everything wrong about. Because I'm not sure, I'm generally a little bit more lenient on Israel than a lot of people in the West.
Okay.
Now, I'm a big critic of someone called Rabbi Shmuley.
Rabbi Shmuley Boteach.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Joel Finkelstein, I think he's a charlatan, really.
Okay, you're not alone.
And I am a little bit concerned about Benjamin Netanyahu, but I wouldn't call the Hamas situation a genocide. I think that is Hamas propaganda.
Okay.
But I'm willing to learn on this all the time.
Most certainly.
But really, I'm halfway to being something else. I could probably try comedy and comedy writing. I love writing comedy and I'm a musician as well. So when I say my podcast goes up, I make a little video, which is usually just one image. And then I post it on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok.
That's phenomenal.
And LinkedIn.
Oh, excellent. And how long are your podcasts usually?
Between 45 minutes to an hour, and then sometimes it's 8 minutes of just a small little chat after the pub.
Oh, okay, excellent. And you've done 13 of them. And if you're wondering, what am I doing? I'm just restarting my stream so that if anything happens during our conversation, we have backups and backups of the backups. You know how that is. So that's great.
Should we try this other thing now and get the ball rolling?
If you don't mind, maybe give me another 3 minutes or so. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Excellent. So you were saying your podcast is usually somewhat international relations based. Is that correct?
No, yeah, the closest thing is my friend Ruben is from Arizona.
Okay.
And he gives the American perspective when I need him, and it's refreshing. I do have 3 people who are affiliated, so there's 3 hopeful guests over in America. They're based in New York, so are you familiar with the Opie and Anthony show?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so do you remember Dr. Steve?
Vaguely.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, we follow each other on there now. And you might have heard of a comedian called Stacey Crossman.
Vaguely.
She is quite close friends with a comedian who's a bit of a weird guy called Mike Buschetti.
Okay.
And then obviously you're familiar with the Howard Stern show.
Absolutely.
If you remember the Rev Bob Levy.
Yes, I do, absolutely.
Yeah, so those 3 are all on my radar. Yeah, they've all said they'll do something like this.
Oh, phenomenal. So you're getting some pretty big guests.
Yes, the idea is to scale this up pretty quickly. So, yeah, the first real one is he really is the name. He didn't play professional role. He was a professional player at one point. He does know people in the game. And I've just got this kind of incredible memory for basically picking people who was slightly above my pay grade. I got a good taste for characters, so I think so. And yeah, it succeeds some of the time, and then when it does succeed, I hold on to it.
Excellent. And do you play soccer yourself? Do you play soccer or football? Do you play football yourself?
Not really. I'm more of a tennis guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and you had mentioned that. So I take it Wimbledon is a big deal?
Well, I'm writing a book at the moment called The Emblem, which is about 2 freaks of nature who just dominate the sport. season. And it's more about how Wimbledon survived them rather than the other way around.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, is this a fiction or non-fiction book?
It's a base fiction.
Okay, excellent.
I'm setting it in a hype that energized real world. A couple of years later than now. But John McEnroe's still alive, so the larger than life tennis figures are going to be in there.
Excellent.
I'll probably weed out the more milk protection ones.
Sure. What are your thoughts?
And then others like characters. But yeah, I think that's the concept of this idea is that one is if you imagine that Rock was an amazing tennis player.
Dwayne the Rock Johnson?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then imagine, so do you remember Federer?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Roger Federer?
If you make him a foot taller and skinnier and just the third better,
Oh,
that's how good this other player is.
okay, so he's basically better than anybody who's ever played and just a physical phenom.
And then one is an absolute athlete at the peak of his powers who happens to be the greatest tennis player of all time. And then the other one happens to be a prodigy tennis player who is a machine, he's a beast. He could be a heavyweight boxer, he could be an MMA guy. He's chosen to go to tennis.
Okay, very interesting.
He can smoke cigars just before going on. That's one of those, right? So basically, favorite.
Okay, very interesting. And what got you into fiction writing, if I may ask?
Well, my first memory, I always tell the story. I always have liked doing it. But once my friend paid me £10 to do his coursework for him secretly.
Okay.
And I really loved it. It was a little. We had to do I think it was a Philip Marlowe, like a film noir kind of thing.
Sure.
And so I did my own. I didn't get a very good score. I think I got a C or something. And then he came out with his tail between his legs because he said like, "Oh, the teacher wants to see me." And he's just like, "Don't tell her. I hope we get away with this." And then he came out smiling, and I said, "What are you smiling about? We got caught." He's good. No, mate. They told me I should be a writer.
Oh, no way.
So I always remember that story.
What a beautiful and inspirational story coming out of something so stressful.
Yeah. So that was the first time I just kind of went, "Oh, maybe there's something in this."
Okay, excellent. So, do you want to be as they say, what is the question? What do you want to be when you grow up?
The dream is to be a published author, but I just write in my spare time and try to get a proper job at the moment to get some money in.
Absolutely. As an author?
But in a normal one. But in the meantime, I'm keeping this all going because I'm talking to you.
Oh, you absolutely are. And let me tell you, your strategy is really great. I see you all over Twitter just doing exactly what you're doing. I call it ambush podcasting. Basically, you just go to someone's reply, say, "Hey, I've got a podcast. Would you like to be on it?" And then you see who connects with you, right?
Yeah, if you don't ask, you don't get. But you don't want to hard sell this. A nice little polite message and things is usually can be okay.
I agree with you, and I think that the way that you've done it has been very polite. Okay, excellent. All right, so let's try this, if you don't mind. Go to the link that I sent you.
Okay.
And basically the video that I started like 12 minutes ago. So if anything, you would just, when you download it on your end, you just cut it at 12 minutes in. But we're going to formally start. So no pressure. We'll get it all arranged. And I appreciate your openness to do this. I think it can be mutually beneficial. I'm doing another podcast later today, one in Australia. I've been doing the podcast circuit. I did one last week with the same person in Australia. And I'm a futurist, so I like to talk about the future. So perhaps some of our discussions.
I know my Ray Kurzweil.
You know who?
My Ray Kurzweil.
Your maker as well?
Ray Kurzweil.
Oh, you know Ray Kurzweil. Oh, excellent. Very well.
I know about him. The singularity.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Yes.
Okay, so this link didn't let me use the camera, so let me just try one more time.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have Discord?
It says camera access not granted. You'll be exchanged which may add you to the podcast anytime you're ready.
Absolutely. Okay, so I can do that once I potentially see you as a guest. Oh, okay, I see you. Just one moment. So I think that are you on your phone doing this?
Yeah.
Okay, so the reason why you don't have access is because you are using your camera right now to talk with me. So we're gonna not quite yet. Okay, and I'm gonna bring it in, and I don't know exactly. I guess, just bear with me as I try to figure this out myself. We'll get it done. You say? I'm gonna. Okay. Okay. I brought you in. Can you see yourself on the screen?
I saw a flash. I can see my name.
Okay. You can see your name.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see you.
Okay, I can't see you.
Okay. So I'll tell you what. I will.
Can we leave this other conversation?
Yeah, we'll leave this one. But if anything, keep the phone close in case we have to go back and reconnect or something. Okay.
I'm leaving the Restream.
Oh no! Stay in the Restream. No, stay in the Restream.
Okay, I'm leaving the Zoom one.
Okay, excellent. And I'll see you in Restream.
Okay, cool. Done. All right.
Hello. Can you hear me? Can you see me or hear me? Louis? Okay, now I can hear you. Louis, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay, your camera is reversed, so the people of the world can see here. Absolutely. Okay. So let me just get situated a little bit. All right. Let me just for our Zoom call, I'm going to end the meeting here. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right. So before we start, if there's anything you need or whatever, you let me know, and you'll be able to just take the raw file and edit it in any way you want. Before we start, let me just check to make sure that we're recording. That's always a good thing to check. I should say.
I can't see you. Is that normal?
Oh no, you should be able to see me.
Oh, I can't. I can see myself.
Okay. Are you on a computer?
No.
Okay, you're on a phone. I want it so that you can see me. So,
I can see discord.me/rabbi.
Yes. Click that little. Is there like a little slider?
No. Oh, hang on.
Okay, you just turned yours off.
Yeah. It's back on now.
Okay, is there one by my name?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I want you to be able to, of course, see me as well. So, we'll figure this out. If you would, you're on a browser?
Safari.
Okay, yeah, browser. All right. Okay, I'll try with a different. I'll do what you're doing, so I'll be like an extra guest, and I will see. I'll see what you're seeing.
Okay. I am just checking this still Native American.
Just bear with me. It's setting up the stage for you. Accessing your camera.
Okay.
I guess I might have dual cameras. That's fine. Okay, join as. So you press the thing that says join as a guest, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Apologies if we're getting feedback. Just a moment. Let's see how we could turn this off. Well, isn't this not cool? Okay. So now I'm kind of getting to see what you're seeing. I think I see Rabbi 2 backstage. Okay, so I have to accept myself as just like you, and then I'm going to have a chance to see what you're seeing, and we will get this worked out.
I see you twice.
Okay, so you see me now?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Not quite the Simpsons. I'm seeing double here. 4 rabbis.
That's right. Okay. So I'm going to leave with this other device. If I may ask, does one of them say discord.me/rabbi and the other says rabbi2?
My left says Discord, so you're right.
Okay. But they have different names. One of them says discord.me/rabbi and the other says rabbi2. Okay, excellent.
And you're putting this on YouTube, right?
Yeah, it's live on YouTube right now. Okay. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So you can see me now. And with that being said, you want to...
Can you see my lovely flax and locks?
Oh, it's beautiful. Palatial, my friend. Okay, so would you like to start?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you get comfortable and then you introduce this like it's one of your podcasts, because it certainly will be. And before we start, let's just say if there's anything you get interrupted or anything, you want anything cut out, you have my permission to cut it out, and I would like the same. If it and But yeah, all my stuff is live, and I'm raw all the time on my footage, so shouldn't have an issue with that. Okay, and then let me.
So, please welcome. This is episode 13 of No Hot Ashes. My guest today is Rabbi Rothschild from California.
That's right. It's a pleasure to be with you today, Louis.
Yeah, you too. So, as my guest, would you like to tell me a little bit about this project of yours?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm Rabbi Rothschild. It's a privilege to be here and a privilege to have your audience here today. I stream my life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for world peace. I've been doing so for more than 4 years. My streams go back to the pandemic. We've seen the death of a queen, the birth of AI, the coronation of a king, and everything in between. This is a real-life Truman Show, a real-life Big Brother. This is a timeline and a time capsule of human achievement. In the 1990s, the phrase "content is king" was coined, and I'm making it true today. I'm, in my own way, king of the internet. I have archived more data than any person in global history, and that's important because in 2017, The Economist magazine stated that data had overtaken petroleum as Earth's #1 resource, which may make me a very influential person someday. If and when that happens, I'd like to make you, your friends, your family, your audience, all financially independent if they're not already. I'd like to ensure that they have generational wealth if they don't already, and I'd like them to be able to start charities and philanthropic organizations of their own.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, because I know I've heard a couple of things about the. Are you an Ashkenazi?
I am.
Yeah, so you've got more Nobel Prizes per capita than any other community in the world.
That's correct.
Is it Alfred Nobel? More Jewish people were involved in the creation of the Manhattan Project.
That's true. Oppenheimer, Edward Teller, and such, yeah.
And a lot of them were wrongly accused of being affiliated with the Communist Party.
Many.
And also, I believe it's also been said there's some people who are pro-Semites. And I know, for example, Christopher Hitchens had a sort of instinct that he had a kinship with the Jewish people. And then it was only after his, very late in his life, he discovered his mother was Jewish. And I remember a conversation with Martin Amis and Christopher Hitchens. Martin.
I can't hear you as well. Did you cover the microphone? I can't hear you. Can you perhaps repeat that? Are you covering the microphone?
I think so.
There you go. Now I can hear you.
Maybe it's just a signal part. Okay. No, it was just a little story about Kingsley Amis, father of Martin. And apparently he just used to say the word "yid" and Martin didn't like it.
It happens.
Yeah.
I do my best to have an open mind to people of all backgrounds, and I personally am a futurist. I like to talk about things about the future, more things that unite us, less that divides us. Do you mind it if I mention some of the topics that I enjoy addressing?
No, absolutely not.
Thank you. So, aside from making everyone in the audience perhaps wealthier than they could have ever imagined based on data, I want to help the world. And I want to do that through the platform that this stream offers me. I'm not live on just one YouTube stream nor two YouTube streams. I'm live at any given time from on more than 20 different YouTube streams. You can watch my life in 360 degrees. I even have a ceiling camera. You can watch my life 365 days of the year. I have been doing this for more than 4 years. So back to the pandemic, we've seen the death of a queen, the birth of AI, the coronation of a king, and everything in between. It's essentially a timeline and a time capsule of human achievement. And with the platform this gives me, I'd like to advocate for ending world hunger through the use of technology such as agricultural drones, floating greenhouses, saltwater greenhouses. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, we're back. Excellent. So I'd like to advocate for ending world hunger through the use of technology such as agricultural drones, floating greenhouses, saltwater greenhouses, hydroponics, vertical farming, cloud seeding. I'd like to help end world thirst. I'm sponsored by a cryptocurrency. It's actually the one that I'm wearing the merchandise right now. It's called Harry Potter Obama Sonic 10 Inu. The ticker's Bitcoin. It's a cryptocurrency that's worth tens of millions of dollars. And one of the things that the community does is build wells and water towers in developing nations for the benefit of the less fortunate. Specifically, we've built water towers in rural villages in Nigeria. I'd like to keep those types of excellent advocacy and programs going in a larger way. Additionally, I'm an advocate for the LifeStraw program, but most importantly, desalination technology, where we pump earth seawater onto land to make it drinkable. Additionally, I talk about things from a futurist perspective, things like perhaps anti-gravity, antimatter, faster than light travel, faster than light communication, space elevators, space tourism, terraforming of other planets, perhaps one day interstellar travel. I like to talk about mega projects, a Bering Strait tunnel, perhaps, bridging the Darien Gap, pardon me, perhaps expanding the channel, the English Channel, so that more traffic can make the journey. I want to be someone who is seen by the world as a big idea individual. I know I can't accomplish all of these goals myself, but they're things that I find interesting. I talk about things like artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence, artificial super intelligence. I, in my own way, am perhaps the world's leading trailblazer in some cutting edge types of technology. One is known as CHDI, it's continuous human data infrastructure. Another is CHAD, which is continuous human activity data. Essentially, the idea of being able to watch an individual for long periods of time and learn about aging, behavior, eating habits, sleeping habits, every aspect of the human body. And I think it's a really exciting project for people to be able to not just observe what I do, but also hear the conversations that I have with people just like you every single day and how we can better the earth.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because so you seem to know a little bit about your comedy shows and things. So do you remember Dr. Michio Kaku?
Yeah, absolutely.
Science of Star Trek.
Yes.
Did you ever see that show?
Science of Star Trek?
Yeah.
I've seen him in documentaries and such, specifically the universe.
Yeah, and,
I've heard his interviews.
The reason I got in touch with Dr. Steve is that they famously didn't get on the Opie Anthony show. So that's the only reason I mentioned him.
Very interesting. Well, these are many of the...
they just didn't like the way you tend to dumb things down when he was talking to them. But apart from that, no, I'm a big fan of Michio.
It depends on the audience. So if I heard you correctly, the science of Star Trek, correct?
Yeah, it's when they were trying to make lightsabers for real and things like that.
Absolutely, and that's a lot of the technology that I discussed. Things like replicators, which is directly from Star Trek. These are also known as Santa Claus machines. For the audience out there, imagine a 3D printer that instead of using plastic, it can use any element in the periodic table to be able to create anything that you want. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, and I think there's a book by David Deutsch called Guns, Germs and Steel, or maybe that's Richard Pearl or something. There's someone, the father of Daniel Pearl. I think that's Richard Pearl. You know, the guy who was beheaded.
Yes, absolutely. The New York Times reporter, and I'm familiar with that book.
Is it Guns, Germs and Steel?
Yes, if you're discussing the exploration of Western colonizers in the New World.
Yeah, and like physics and the limits of physics, but I think one of these guys just said technically, if we crack physics, anything is possible.
That's absolutely correct.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. That's absolutely right, Louis. And I'm an advocate of that. I feel like there are people out there who may say that much of what I discuss seems like science fiction. I mean, many of these ideas have been discussed in science fiction media, but I want to help bridge the gap between science fiction and science fact. At one time, when people would talk about brain-computer interfaces, that seemed like far-off technology. But at the beginning of this decade, we had the first successful brain-computer interface, Neuralink, in a gentleman known as Nolan Aspro, approximation on his pronunciation of his name. He's a quadriplegic man who can now play video games better than you or I can, and perhaps maybe anyone on Earth. He basically has an auto aimer in his head. And the goal is to perhaps be able to create some kind of transmitter. I think at this time it might be Bluetooth, but perhaps some other type of signal in the future to be able to bridge the gap between the separation in his spinal cavity or his spinal column, so that signals can be sent to the lower part of his body, and perhaps one day he may be able to have use of his hands again, maybe perhaps, God willing, use of his legs. That to me,
if they get a load of stem cells in him, that might help.
Absolutely. And that type of technology 30 years ago seemed like science fiction. Brain-computer interface sounded like science fiction. Something like Neuralink sounded like science fiction. We're starting to bridge those things. CRISPR technology, if you're familiar and your audience is familiar with CRISPR technology, seemed like science fiction 20, 30 years ago.
If we could have made Oscar Pistorius have some real legs, maybe he wouldn't end up killing his wife or with his girlfriend.
There may perhaps have been alternatives, certainly, that may have existed. And we are at the precipice of something really special. I like to discuss other things that are on we are on the horizon. One is known as de-extinction. I don't know if your audience is familiar, but the de-extinction, many people think this is like Jurassic Park kind of technology. We're a little ways off from that kind of technology, but essentially it is, in layman's terms, perhaps, or layperson's terms, being able to create a somewhat hybrid version of a once extinct species. So many people don't know, but the first successful de-extinction has already taken place. It took place in the year 2003 with the Pyrenean ibex, which is a goat located in northern Spain, southern France. Fast forward to the year 2021, a company out of Dallas, Texas is founded known as Colossal Bioscientific. They've made it their goal that within the next 2 years, or by the year 2028, to reintroduce the woolly mammoth into the Arctic Circle, utilizing Asian elephant surrogates, which I just think is a mind-blowing goal. Following
just to give people a little bit of a pop culture weigh in on this one. It's the bullfrogs being used in the Jurassic Park to they ended up breeding because they mixed them with toads and is it bullfrogs in Jurassic Park that they used to fill in the gaps in the DNA?
I believe it was something like that. Additionally, mosquito and
Alan Grant picks up the thing and he just tells them and he gives them a little speech about that. Yeah,
absolutely. And then some mosquito and amber related as well. This type of technology. And following the reintroduction of the woolly mammoth, Scientists want to reintroduce the Tasmanian tiger, which went extinct perhaps the last one I believe in captivity was in the 1920s, followed by the dodo bird, which went extinct around the 1600s or so. I think these are fascinating topics that really we're not talking enough about, I feel, and are really exciting.
Condors are also a thing, aren't they? Condors are dying, and then someone brought a couple of those back.
So the California condor, if that's what you're referencing, during the 1990s was on the verge, or around then, was on the verge of extinction, but has had quite a resurgence as well. Not specifically, to my knowledge, through de-extinction technology, but just through conservation efforts, which I'm certainly an advocate of. I feel that perhaps we did a lot of damage to the earth during the Industrial Revolution, and perhaps with many of the advancements that we've made in science and technology, we may be able to reverse some of those effects. Other things that I like to talk about that may be of interest to your audience are things like perhaps life extension technology. Most people in your audience, when they were born, the average life expectancy for them was probably about age 80. Perhaps I'd like to increase that, or give them the resources to be able to increase that, and make these types of technologies more affordable. Things like oxygen therapy, hyperbaric chambers, things like perhaps we talked earlier, stem cells, perhaps human growth hormone, cryonics, cryogenics, nootropics, peptides, cold shock therapy, ambrosia therapy, some types of
maybe sensory deprivation bar. For the mind.
Absolutely, we could certainly include that. Tanks, yeah, absolutely. Sensory deprivation tanks. I don't know if you or your listeners have ever been in one. They're amazing. If you've ever had the experience, I have. They're amazing. Essentially, you float on very saline-based or salt-based water. You almost feel absolutely weightless. It's a very dark chamber. The water is tepid. It's the same temperature basically as your body, around 98.6 degrees. And
it's your own little miniaturized, personalized Dead Sea.
That's exactly right. And you can let your mind escape. It's almost, in its own way, a very meditative trance that you can almost go in, because generally there is no light. You can't feel anything. You can't hear anything. And it's quite an amazing process. It really makes you have different feelings or different understandings of time. And also, what your body's, the types of deep consciousness and deep focus your body can perhaps be in. Additionally, I talk about things like certainly cold shock therapy, ambrosia therapy, perhaps blood transfusions of your own blood, things like red light therapy, and testosterone replacement therapy for both men and women. These are all really exciting life extension technology. But when both men and women can benefit from these types of technologies. And I want to, if possible, extend or expand the average life expectancy from age 80 to age 100, 120. But eventually at 120 or so, many people in the audience, you as well, may say, Rabbi, back in 2026, a lot of what you discussed sounded like science fiction, but it's become science fact. My body's starting to break down. What's the next plan? And this is where I feel it gets really interesting and really exciting for those of you out there who want, this is with your consent. Everything that I talk about, I feel should be with your own consent. Consent's very important to me. And so I'm an advocate of my body, my choice, and I don't feel anything should be forced upon you. But if you want, you may be able to utilize a type of technology known as mind uploading technology, where, with your consent, we scan your brain into a computer like a CAT scan or an MRI, knowing where every atom is in your central nervous system and your peripheral nervous system, for later download as an android, an avatar, a cyborg, a cybernetic being, a clone of yourself, a robot, an ethereal being, whatever you want to be. But what I want you to know...
There's a Johnny Depp film about that, wasn't it? Where he uploaded himself to the conscious.
I believe so. Yes. This is a common narrative within a lot of science fiction movies. But essentially what I'm saying to you, Louis, and your audience is that you may be able to have a future of digital immortality, which is an extremely exciting opportunity. We are essentially the last generation, or maybe perhaps the first generation, that may be able to either avoid death or extend life to the point where we may be able to live indefinitely. And I just think this is a really exciting future.
A real life afterlife.
That's absolutely correct. And from there, many people say, well, I don't want to live forever. And no one's forcing you to. Many people with whom I interact on a daily basis say, I want to just live my normal life and die whenever I want to die. And I feel that that should be allowed. I am, I want this technology to be used with people's consent. However, there are those of us, and perhaps we've been termed transhumanists, people who want to extend life, if possible, for as long as possible. And for those of us who may have the ability to do so, we would like to maybe be able to reverse age and extend our current life in whatever bodies we have for as long as possible. And then perhaps, if needed, might use mind uploading technology to be able to live indefinitely. And for your audience out there that may wonder what this is like, it's essentially like a save point in a video game, for lack of a better analogy, where you could essentially upload your consciousness into a computer system. And then if anything ever happened to you, God forbid, you were in deep space exploration or whatever, we'd be able to get that save point back. And perhaps there might be some way that you wouldn't need to do manual saves, that there could be some kind of automatic saving system, perhaps in the future. That's all for generations to come to be able to decide. Absolutely. And then for those people out there who want to live for not just hundreds of years, not just thousands of years, but perhaps millions and maybe even billions of years, if they'd like, at any point, they should be granted the option, if they want, to just stop and be able to end it all, or come back with their memories erased, and or just not come back at all. I want to give people rights. I think that's really important. I think it's a really... Go ahead.
Yeah, and for these poor souls that are born in the wrong body, the gender dysphoria,
yeah, so
they have the ability to have very effective non-invasive surgery. Just get it done very quickly.
That's absolutely correct. And so for those of you out there who are LGBTQ plus, I consider myself to be plus. Whatever that is, we don't really know what that is, but that means that I may want to experiment in the future to be whatever I want to be. If I live 10 million years as a man, I might one day want to live as a woman. If I spend 10 million years as a human, I might want to be a different type of species someday. I don't want to limit myself to anything. So in addition to being an LGBTQ plus ally, and perhaps consider my own self non-binary, or wanting to perhaps, if I want to be a woman in the future, maybe not in this lifetime, but maybe in a future lifetime, or perhaps in this lifetime if I continue to live for a very long time.
With your brain for a day.
Pardon me?
A tree frog with your brain?
That's exactly right. And who knows what scientists will be able to perhaps develop in the future, and what kinds of technology. So these are some of the topics that I discuss on my stream. I've been doing this now for more than 4 years, from more than 20 different YouTube streams. For anyone out there who wants to view my YouTube streams, who finds this really interesting, you can find me on YouTube 24 hours a day by typing my name, I'm Rabbi Rothschild, into YouTube, and make sure you filter by live, because I have so much content. It's an absolute sea of 12-hour videos that I basically have. You want to filter by live, and you'll be able to watch my life in 360 degrees.
Okay.
Additionally,
this is how I'll find this video there.
Yeah, I'll also send you a link so that you don't have to.
Brilliant. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So that you don't have to delve through all of those. But additionally, for your audience who wants to find out more about what I do, go to my Linktree, linktree.com/Rabbi Rothschild, just like my name, just like who I am. And you'll be able to find more social media of any individual than you've ever found. I have blogs there. I have tens of thousands of different accounts on TikTok and Kick and Blue Sky and Pinterest and certainly Snapchat and of course YouTube and Instagram and Twitch. I have more social media than anybody would ever want.
Facebook, everything.
Absolutely, it's all there. Linktree.com.
Oh yeah, we connected through X, didn't we?
We did connect through X. Yeah, so X is a great place to be able to find me as well. All my links are in my link tree, so just go there, linktree.com/Rabbi Rothschild. If you want to join my Discord, I'm live in Discord 24 hours a day. And so the best link, you can find that in my link tree as well, linktree.com/Rabbi Rothschild. You can also find it at discord.me/rabbi. And that will give you a link directly to my Discord. We have thousands of people who are members there. It's free. Everything I talk about is free. There's no charge for any of this. If you want to connect with me and you want to talk about futurology, I'm here for you. If you want to connect with me and you want to talk about Judaism, I'm here to talk about it. If you want to connect with me and talk about Kabbalah, I'm here to talk about it with you. If you want to connect with me and talk about history or science, or you're just having a relationship issue and you want someone with whom to speak, I'm here for you. I'm here to support not just my community, but anybody else who hears my voice who wants help. I'm here to be a helper in this world. I'm here to be a teacher in this world. I'm here to be a leader in this world.
Okay, can I ask? I'll get one plug-in for your audience. This is for my own benefit. I'm 1% majority on Substack. That's £50 a year. You get all my essays that I'll write every year. So that's that out of the way. Now, can I ask you, what do you think Madonna's attraction to the Kabbalah was?
Absolutely. So this is something that came about in the late 90s or so, along with some other celebrities, including Britney Spears and others. And it was based out of the Kabbalah Center in Beverly Hills in Robinson. Basically, there is a movement in major cities around the world for people of all backgrounds, not just of the Jewish faith, but all backgrounds, to be able to study Jewish mysticism. And Madonna, I believe, had basically taken the invitation, perhaps, of some of her colleagues who were interested in studying Jewish mysticism and studied at the Kabbalah Center in West Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, and was able to have, I think, it had a major impact on her. As I understand, she avoids having concerts on Friday nights, which is our Shabbat, and perhaps has worn the red string that's associated with the Kabbalah Center, and other celebrities were affected by this as well.
Cut out pork as well, I imagine.
I don't know her dietary habits specifically, but I do know that she does an excellent job doing her best to keep in shape. And I personally think that any person who wants to enlighten themselves, there are ways to do it. It doesn't have to be religiously or philosophically. Just stretching, meditating. Those are really great ways that you can really transform your own life. And for anyone out there who is looking to become more connected to Kabbalah, I teach a Kabbalah class every day. So I've taught over 100 of them consecutively. They're available on my different YouTube streams. And they're all at least an hour, sometimes multiple hours a day. And we cover everything from ancient Kabbalah to medieval Kabbalah. We cover modern Kabbalah. And then I also give it some other Jewish and halakhic Jewish law flavor, and some Yiddish in there, certainly some Hebrew in there. And it's a great starting place for people who don't have a huge background in Kabbalah. And I have intentions to do this for the rest of my life. I think it'd be great to have a really nice compendium of at least 1 hour per day of just my teaching. Sometimes we watch documentaries on Kabbalah of other teachers if I find that they are prudent, and just do our best to do as much deep dives into Jewish mysticism as possible. And really, I think in general, just my streams are about self-improvement, improving yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, behaviorally. I want you and everybody else out there who hears my voice to have a better life. And if there's anything that I can do to help that or aid that, I want to be here. So anyone who wants to connect with me, come to my Discord. I'd love to meet you. Come check out my Linktree, linktree.com/Rabbi Rothschild. You can find all my links there. It's just a really interesting project that I know I've undergone, and I'm not alone. There are other people who I've met who stream their life on YouTube. Not for as many days. I've never met anybody really even close to what I've done. But there are people out there who do have what I call it, not just a live stream, but a life stream where they just stream their whole life. I've streamed as far north as Santa Barbara, California, as far south as San Diego, as far west as the Pacific Ocean, as far east as the desert and mountains. I've streamed in Beverly Hills, in Los Angeles, at Disneyland, basically everywhere in Southern California. It's easiest for me to stream generally from a desktop stream because of connectivity. But when I go viral, I want to travel the world, helping people, connecting with people, improving the world in any way that I can.
So, we can talk a bit. So, are you a religious Jew?
I am.
Okay, because there's another thing. Christopher Hitchens floated this idea that he thinks a lot of Jews maybe have the gene for atheism, because a lot of Jews tend to be unbelievers.
Oh, absolutely. There's perhaps,
for example, like Woody Allen. And,
most certainly, perhaps
Larry David.
Absolutely, secular Judaism is a major movement in the world. It's really at the foundation of the Zionist movement. Many of the early Zionists in the 19th century, so 1800s, were found themselves frustrated with religion and moved more in that political movement. I personally am about world peace. I want everyone to get along, so I do my best to avoid politics to the best of my ability. I am certainly someone who is a social justice activist. I want good for all individuals in the world, but certainly secular Judaism for many people, and specifically within Judaism, has been a big movement. And based on statistics, as many as about half of all people, of all Jews, have some type of non-belief to some extent. Even Israel is a secular country. The majority of people there, of course, they may identify as Jewish, but do they believe every single thing that you're supposed to believe as an Orthodox Jew? Perhaps that may be in question. But I, as a rabbi, want to connect people with science and certainly religion, and see that they may not be all that separate, and move forward in what unites us as not just Jews, but as people in general. I look at it this way. At least the Western religion, so we're talking Judaism, Christianity, Islam, we all are Abrahamic religions. And so really we're all basically branches of the same Father. And perhaps the branches may have separated at different times, but we all have the same source. And then even from there, the other major religions of the world, certainly Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism and Confucianism.
Can you see the bookshelf up there?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, so that yellow one on the top shelf, hold on, is that angled right? Can you see that yellow one?
Yeah, I see a little yellow, yeah.
Yeah, that little yellow, that's The Portable Atheist, and that's got loads of essays in there, and compiled by Christopher Hitchens. And that's got essays from Karl Marx and things like that.
Very well.
Yeah.
And for those who are hearing this, Christopher Hitchens certainly had an amazing effect on the world. Richard Dawkins, I feel, another an evolutionary biologist, had a major impact on the world. And I don't necessarily see that these types of belief systems have to necessarily be separate. And if we were all being honest, Christopher Hitchens, the Rebbe of Chabad, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the an Orthodox sage, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, the Chafetz Chaim, the Vilna Gaon, all the great rabbis, all the great secularists. If we sat them at one big table and we really were being honest, none of us know. We're all agnostic in our own way. No one knows anything. Now, it's a difficult thing to prove. We're just doing what we were taught to do, perhaps what our traditions are. When I teach my classes, I generally do my best at the beginning of them all to say no one knows for sure. Elu ve'elu, Elokim Chaim. But I do my best to say that this is the Mazor we live by. And Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim is something that I feel is important to be able to recognize. This is the Mazor that we live by. This is a tradition that we live by as Jews, but no one really knows.
No. And I hope I get a quick agreement from you. This the most poisonous conspiracy theory of all time is the protocols of the Elders of Zion.
I would say that it is certainly a controversial subject, and I'm about uniting the world. I'm about peace, and I do my best to avoid some of these alternative thoughts. And I tend to look in. This is forced upon me by the people I listen to, so I just know this stuff. I read a book called Voodoo Histories by David Aronovich, and it was just all about conspiracy theories, and he nailed fabrication. So anyway, could I ask you what you go to escape when you're just sat in front of the TV with wanting to watch something? Do you like watching Seinfeld? I do. I love Seinfeld. I'm a huge Seinfeld head, as the kids say. I love Seinfeld. I loved it in the 90s. I loved it in the noughts. I loved it in the teens, and I love it in the 20s. I'm certain I've seen them all. I'm in the Seinfeld sub.
Larry David over to Kurt?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's great, right?
100%. 100%. I'm in the Seinfeld subreddits. I love the Seinfeld memes. I see Seinfeld as a I see the world through perhaps ways that show shaped my views on the world in many ways. I love Seinfeld. It is near and dear to me. So I do like Seinfeld. I like stand-up comedy a lot. I like comedy in general. I like comedians. I feel it's important to laugh. It's important for the world to be able to not take itself too seriously. So I very much enjoy watching stand-up comedy. That's what I like to do in my free time. Additionally, I like to play games. So everything from chess and checkers and even card games, I enjoy playing. I love the social aspect of the internet, where two people on different continents can be able to connect, able to have intriguing conversations, be able to share, and just that's a really special part, I feel, of the time in which we are living. And so I am at home in my own comfort when I'm basically relaxing, able to play games or read on a subject that's interesting to me, and I have a podcast on in the background or comedy on in the background. That's basically something that makes me very happy. I love to learn, so I'm someone who might have multiple podcasts on at the simultaneously, because I just feel that I'm not fulfilled with one enough, or whatever it may be. I love to learn. I love to read. I love intriguing ideas, and really, with the advent of AI, I feel that it's giving humans, maybe people who wouldn't previously have delved into writing, an opportunity to be able to express themselves. I think it's an excellent tool if used correctly. I know that I've used it myself constantly. I was an early adopter of ChatGPT in November 2022. So I started the stream in 2021. So I actually have like pre-large language models about an entire year, more than an entire year of my life on camera archived. And then from there, ChatGPT launched on November 30th or so, 2022. And then I've been able to see the different changes that have happened with the world, with certainly the advent of ChatGPT, ChatGPT 1, ChatGPT 2, ChatGPT 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. And then its competitors, Claude and Gemini and Copilot and certainly Grok and all of the others, and how it has affected our society, how it's affected certainly the internet and just people's jobs. I remember when I would first talk to people about ChatGPT, they didn't think it was that going to have that big of an effect, and then they'd come back to me subsequently and be like, "Oh boy, was I wrong." This is a game changer, and it most certainly is. In the same way that the internet was a game changer, and television was a game changer, and radio was a game changer, AI is the coming technology that has already changed the world and will continue to do so.
Yeah, and to have this conversation now with no delay as well, that's progress.
It's phenomenal. I think we're on the cusp of something really interesting, especially when we get into the virtual reality and augmented reality and all of the ways that people will be able to connect with haptic suits and haptic feedback. We are just on the precipice of something really special, and I'm excited at where the world's going. There are a lot of people who are negative on the future, and if you're hearing my voice, I'm someone who's positive about it. I think that the future can be bright, and I don't have a dystopian idea of the future. Many people feel like we may be living in 1984 of George Orwell. Well, very few people know this, but there's a 1985, not written by George Orwell, but there is a 1985 which has a different take on things, and perhaps the future isn't so bleak. And for those of us who may have a positive mindset in the future, perhaps there may be some type of utopian opportunity, and I do my best to maintain positivity. I know from my own perspective, if I keep streaming, I keep the consistency every single day, meeting new people, having my community grow, it's just going to take one influencer out there, and it could be anyone who's listening right now who sees what I do, sees that I have more data archived than any person ever, and data is Earth's #1 resource according to The Economist magazine, and I could potentially make them richer than they'd ever their wildest dreams. All they have to do is retweet something that I do, or repost something that I do, or talk to a friend of theirs that's an influencer. So if you're hearing my voice right now and you know someone who may potentially have a large influence, specifically on social media, but even in real life as well, tell them about what I do. Look into what I'm doing. Connect with me, because all I need is that catalyst, and we are going to take over the world with this project. And then it's going to be a treasure trove of all of the different things that I created on the internet. I've treated the internet like it's my canvas, and I have more content than any person ever. It's going to be very exciting for people to be able to enjoy it. There are a lot of people out there who think that the internet is full of bots or full of AI. I'm real. I'm raw. My data is raw, and I feel that's going to be really important to people of the future. Anybody can do a short form video, perhaps AI generated. Anybody can do that. Not everybody has themselves sneezing on camera, going to the bathroom on camera, bathing, eating, crying, laughing, all of the things that a human does. And I feel this is a beautiful story to be able to tell the world, and I appreciate, Louis, the opportunity to share it with your audience.
Cool, no worries. Yeah, and some ideas need to go more viral, like the idea of effective altruism, for example.
I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah, more people, because if I suddenly was on a wage of 50 grand a year or something, I would definitely channel some of that to a charity, and I would research where the right charities to go to.
I'm in agreement with you. Many people ask me, so Rabbi, you say you're going to make us rich. How are you going to do it? And if I may just include, I do say data is Earth's #1 resource, and my data isn't monetized right now. We're going to take all of the money that I create from all of my different streams, and we're going to create a large trust. Basically, not just to help everyone who's helped me along the way. You're all recorded in one way or another if you've joined my Discord or we're friends on Instagram or whatever it may be. And what we're going to do is we're going to help you, your friends, your family with that money from all of the data that I am able to monetize. Additionally, I am going to be able to monetize all of my social media, my thousands of accounts, all of the content that I have there. Moreover, I'm going to be able to be perhaps the world's biggest spokesperson, just like I am for this cryptocurrency. I'll be able to essentially wear an F1 suit with different opportunities for people to be able to sponsor me and watch me 24 hours a day. This is an opportunity unlike any previously from a marketing perspective. Nobody will say, I will wear your brand all the time like I do. Absolutely. And then another way we'll be able to do it perhaps is through cryptocurrency and other investments, because I'm the foremost spokesperson of cryptocurrency in many ways. I feel that I have a beautiful archive of the crypto journey, specifically on Twitter, but also on things like Pump Fun and or X and other places, and Telegram. I've been live streaming my life in the Harry Potter Obama Sonic 10 Inu Telegram for years. I have more than years of my life archived on X. I have years of my life archived on YouTube and Rumble and Instagram. It would take one individual more than 100 years to watch just a fraction of my streams. That's how much data we're talking about here. We're not talking gigabytes. We're not talking terabytes. We're talking petabytes. And that's a really exciting opportunity, not just for your average individual.
What's petabyte? Is that a billion bytes? Or
It's 1,000 terabytes.
So a million.
Well, so it is a gigabyte is or a
terabyte is just 100 bytes, right?
No. It works on a 1,000 scale. So you have byte, and then from there you have kilobyte. That's 1,000 bytes. Then you have megabyte, which is 1,000 kilobytes. Then you have a gigabyte, which is 1,000 megabytes. Then you have a terabyte, which is 1,000 gigabytes, and then you have a petabyte, which is 1,000 terabytes. And so that is a huge amount of data. Now, it's more than any one individual will be able to basically absorb on their own. But that's where AI comes into place. We're going to be able to make AI over the course of my day. I can already do this. Take a 12-hour video of mine, put it into a generator, and it'll come up with the best 3 minutes of whatever I did over the course of that day. People will be able to get digests of what I do. But then for those people out there who always want to connect with someone, I'm always here. I'm always available. You can connect with me. And a very cool aspect of this, especially when I travel the world, God willing, people are going to always have something to do. Imagine any of your favorite influencers out there. At a given point, they always say, all right, bye, everyone. I don't. I'm always streaming. I am the king of content. I'm king of the internet. And that's a really exciting opportunity for people, for one person to share their entire life with the world. And it's my gift to the world. I do so because I've sacrificed many aspects of my life to be able to have this project. And I feel that the world will be a better place in the future if we have the opportunity to be able to study all this data. And the role that I have in AI is incredibly important. I mentioned it previously, the continuous human data infrastructure and continuous human activity data is an exciting amount of data for AI to be able to parse, to be able to digest, to be able to learn not just about behavior, but micro behavior, micro actions. And we're just looking at this from a two-dimensional standpoint. Very soon, 2 dimensions will be increased to HD, and then 3 dimensions, and people will be able to essentially live my life virtually if they want. And then there are other aspects that may be able to happen in the future where you're able to remove different layers of my clothing with augmented reality, perhaps layers of my skin, actually see what's going on in my brain, maybe even know the exact thoughts that I'm discussing right now. You might be able to somehow, with some kind of futuristic technology, be able to study. That is an incredible opportunity for the world. So this is the start, I feel, of something really great. I've been doing it for 4 years, so it doesn't seem like it's just the start, but I know I am on the edge of something really great. And it's just going to take one person to check out what I do, recognize that it is just an incredible, incredible amount of data, and that this is something really special, and it's going to change the world.
You want to retweet from Lady Gaga with her playing Edge of Glory.
That's absolutely right. Lady Gaga, when you see this, I have many songs of yours that we have on the stream. I have many videos that I've made. Every single person who is essentially a big artist is on my stream, whether it's from TikTok videos, whether it's from karaoke, whether it's from bumper music, everyone out there. So there isn't really an aspect of the human of media or just of humans in general that my stream hasn't had some type of connection. I've done my best to watch all of the major films, especially the Oscar nominees and winners going back to the 1920s. Listen to every major album, listen to every major audiobook and every major religious text. I want this to be the compilation of the world's media. This isn't and just not just media, but achievements. This isn't just the story of Rabbi Rothschild. This isn't just the story of the history of time. This is a compilation of behavior and a time capsule. It's in my opinion, in the past we might have had like the Epic of Gilgamesh, and then of course we have the Bible. This is a new Bible in its own way. Now, I don't want to disparage our traditional Hebrew Bible by any means, but I really lack words. I mean, it's like a new Talmud. It's really in its own way such a huge compilation that I mean it to say it's not greater than those by any means, but in terms of what it may do to from just a compendium of information and how it may affect the world, I think that it could have a similar effect, and certainly it builds upon these things. So my stream, certainly we address and study Kabbalistic texts every day. We also study the Talmud every day. We also study Hebrew Bible every single day. Those are the great texts of the world, and I don't mean to say, and I want to emphasize, my stream is lowly in comparison to those, but it's different. It encompasses all of those, which in its own way makes it unique, just like the Hebrew Bible is unique, just like the Talmud is unique, just like Kabbalistic literature is unique, and the other great books of the world and the world's religions. When I feel 1,000 years from now, people are looking at all of the creations of the world, what I've created, this timeline and this time capsule, will certainly be one of those watermarks, one of those timestamps of something really special.
Okay, and Gilgamesh was famously mentioned he was in a South Park episode, wasn't he, Gilgamesh?
Most certainly, yeah.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Tom Holland, British historian?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a podcast recently with. Do you know Andrew Sullivan?
Yeah.
So the Dishcast, the Daily Dish.
Yes.
There's a great conversation with him and Tom Holland. They talk about the ancient. This is post St. Paul kind of era, I think. It's when it gets really interesting in the old ancient scriptures.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a great listen. It's only half an hour long.
Okay, I'll have to check it out.
But no, Tom Holland is a legendary historian in Britain.
Absolutely. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, very respected.
Excellent.
Yeah. Are we at about an hour?
Yes, we are. So for anyone out there, let's plug your Substack again. So if you haven't had the opportunity, please join Louis' Substack and also download his podcast. You're going to be able to get it on everything from LinkedIn to YouTube to all of the other platforms out there. And please plug anything else you'd like, and then I'll plug, and then we can.
Okay, sure. So the Substack is 1% Majority, all lowercase, all one word. That's Substack. That's £50 a year. You get access to all essays. If I ever deem an essay to be a public service announcement, so for example, if there was a nuclear threat or something, I'm going to post that essay for free on Facebook. I'm not going to put things I think the world needs to know urgently behind a paywall, but I will put general essays. There's a couple of short stories on there. There'll be a ton of content, and all I'm hoping is a slight stream of that to support the podcast. So any money that comes through Substack will go straight into doing anything creative like this. And I've also got some YouTube channel, which is, if you just type in 1% Majority into all the socials, it will generally link you up with all this kind of stuff. If you, again, I've got an easy name to find. You can Google Louis Hesse Antel, and then I'm sure you'll know there's not a lot of Louis Hesse Antels in the world, so people can find me very easily like that. And yeah, apart from that, I've got a YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, LinkedIn. There's a blog called The Russian Roll Rock and Roll at WordPress.com. That's very old. There's some recipes on there. And I've also written several books, which is a trilogy called The Stand-Up Chronicles. There's a book called Numachi, a book called The Session. I'm in the middle of writing one called The Open. I want to make films. One called The Easy Way, a sitcom called Opposition Wives, a sketch show called The Long Show, and ideally a cookbook. But all of this stuff is a hobby. Now, yeah, please tell me about your what do you want to say to finish this up?
Absolutely. So for anyone who is watching this, the best place to connect with me is my Discord. You can find that link at discord.me/rabbi. Also, all my social media, linktree.com/rabbi. If you want to view all my streams, just to give the audience out there an idea of all of my streams, you type Rabbi Rothschild, my name, into YouTube and you filter by live. And when you do that, you're going to find more streams than any individual you've ever seen in your entire life. Look at, I'm going to try to pull it up here. You can see we are having this conversation live. Look at all these live streams that you are going to be able to find. You can view my life in 360 degrees. It's extremely exciting. You can even see Louis there. I mean, how meta is this? That he can see himself on the stream as we're doing this. This is just an amazing technology that we're utilizing here. And these are all live. So if you don't like one angle, we've got another angle for you. It's an incredible amount of data for people to be able to parse. So that's...
Scratch your back. You scratch mine. We'll subscribe to each other's YouTube channels.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So no doubt with that. So again, linktree.com/Rabbi Rothschild. I am available on X there. You can find my links. I'm available. You have my YouTube streams there. I have a Spotify podcast for those of you who want to check that out. You can find, I am a writer as well. So you can find my writings at rabbirothschild.medium.com and view some of my deeper thoughts on some subjects. And with that, Louis, I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to connect with you. I will catch you offline and we can make the arrangements to be able to get this published, and just really appreciate your time and appreciate the audience's time. And really, as the old adage goes, for both of us, the best is yet to come.
Brilliant. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Rothschild. Can I ask your first name?
My name is Michael.
Michael. Okay, thank you from Louis, from over here in sunny old Bristol to you in sunny old California.
Peace.
Right. Wish you luck for the future. All right, thank you, Rabbi.
You Cheers. As well. Take care, Louis.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Did that work? I don't know. Yo, dog, did it record? I don't know. I hope so. What would you do if it didn't record? I have so many different streams. I would hope it record on one of them. All right. So you're live streaming. I think so. Okay.
What's the magical outcome? Let me just... father of Martin. And apparently he just... More than 20, perhaps, ways that show shaped my views on the world in many ways. I love Seinfeld.
it is near and dear to me. But I do like Seinfeld. I like stand-up comedy a lot. I like comedy in general. I like comedians. I think it's important to laugh. It's important for the world to be able to not take yourself too seriously. So I very much enjoy watching stand-up comedy. That's what I like to do in my free time. Additionally, we had the such, yeah,
And they were, a lot of them were wrongly accused of being affiliated with the communists.
someday out, and I would like the same. But yeah, all my stuff is live, and I'm raw all the time on my footage. So
Okay, so please welcome. This is
Update me when you have posted the link to your social media, period. I will then take your edits and post them on my social media, as well, period. I will also follow you on all of the social medias, as discussed, period. Please let me know if you have any questions or need any assistance, period. Thank you again for making time for me and hearing about my project, period. Are you happy? Yeah, that was great. Shout out to Louis, dude.
Says even an imperfect ceasefire is better than resuming full war. A new study says many Gen Z adults still depend on their parents for money, housing, and other help. The 2026 Wells Fargo Money Study finds nearly 2/3 of parents with Gen Z kids say they're still providing financial support, and more than half say it's hurting their own finances. Earlier research from the University of Buffalo and the new school found Black adults are less likely than white adults to receive that kind of help from parents. We're going to check and see what's slowing you down along the 55 next.
You know, for years and years, I've been telling you about the Persian Palace and how I built the Persian Palace. And from day one, I wanted paving stones for my driveway, so I went with system pavers. Because I believe then, which I still do, they're simply the best out there. So they get my paver driveway, and then my synthetic turf, and then the landscape lighting, and the house still looks great 25 years later. And system pavers has no cracked concrete, no dead grass, no outdated hardscape. I mean, it's easy to do bad work. They don't. And they don't just do pavers. Great outdoor living, barbecue islands, fire features, water features, I mean, all of it. And here is, and they're doing my home right now with synthetic turf and outdoor lighting. So here is the offer to the end of the month. 50% off materials. Call 800-PAVE-004, 800-PAVE-004. Visit systempavers.com/KFI, systempavers.com/KFI.
All right, well, we gotta finish our class. Really? Yeah.
Messianist stuff appeals to are typically people like Bolshevas, people who convert back to Orthodox Judaism, and younger people. But most of the more established Chabad world doesn't really get down with this Messiah stuff. Although I think they do still control 770, which is the main synagogue in the Chabad world there in Brooklyn on Eastern Parkway. So the Chabad movement has this messianic thing going on, which is super weird and interesting. So there's this huge messianic movement, which again could be a whole class unto itself, inside of the Chabad movement, where they do believe that their late leader is the Messiah. And this is causing some serious problems in the Chabad movement because it is such a movement based on outreach. Although in my experience and what I've been told by folks who've grown up in the movement is that largely the kind of people that the messianist stuff appeals to are typically people like Bolshevas, people who convert back to Orthodox Judaism, and younger people. But most of the more established Chabad world doesn't really get down with this Messiah stuff. Although I think they do still control 770, which is the main synagogue in the Chabad world there in Brooklyn on Eastern Parkway. So the Chabad movement has this messianic thing going on, which is super weird and interesting. For the folks who are in Michigan who are hanging out with me in this class, you probably have never heard about this or heard about it only briefly because the Shemto family, which is the larger Chabad family here in Michigan, is a very old Chabad family. They were sent here as shluchim, as emissaries by the Rebbe way back in the 70s or 80s, something like that. But they were the leading force in many ways of the anti-Messianist movement. They really thought the Messianist movement was dangerous. And the Shemto family, which is very powerful here, at least in Michigan, has never been on the Messianic camp. And I don't think the Messianic camp has ever gotten a foothold in the Metro Detroit area when it comes to that stuff. That's different in other places, but I don't think that the Messianic camp has ever gotten a foothold here. But go to Brooklyn, go to 770, certainly is there. All right, the last two things I guess I'll mention before we really wrap up is the rise of the Neo-Hasidic movement. As folks know, the Neo-Hasidic movement was pioneered by folks like Martin Buber, who came out of the Hasidic world but maintained a lot of nostalgia, not the right word, but wanted to sort of modernize and expand the Hasidic movement outside of the dynastic structure. And so many of the tales of the Hasidim and a lot of Hasidic spirituality became sort of exported out of the Hasidic world and then imported into the modern Orthodox world and the conservative world especially, and the Reconstructionist world most recently in the sort of the Chavurah movement of the 1970s. This is a period of Karl Bach and stuff like that for folks who grew up with Karl Bach and not. And so it's in that world that we have the rise of what might be called the Neo-Hasidic movement. And this movement has proven to be extraordinarily popular in the Jewish world. And there are great luminaries in the Neo-Hasidic world, folks who recently passed away, like Rabbi Shlomi and Art Green, who was one of Alana's teachers, actually, in Hebrew College. He's probably one of the premier Neo-Hasidic leader in the world right now. This was really funny at Purim, but he and I got to have a few drinks together and talk about Kabbalah briefly. I feel like I had a great honor to be able to hang out with one of these Gaons of the Neo-Hasidic movement, and so got to spend some time with Art Green when I was up in Boston with Alana. So the Neo-Hasidic movement is alive and well, and I think as popular as ever. I would say that it's actually growing in popularity, and with folks like Joey Weisenberg and other kinds of folks who are really channeling sort of Hasidic ideas into music, that stuff is going to prove to be continually popular. The last thing I'll mention, and this is the thing I imagine some folks already know, is of course mainstream pop culture Kabbalah. The Kabbalah Center, led by Rabbi Berg, which has received a lot of criticism, but whatever, I think that it's a legit form of Kabbalah as much as anything else is, at least from an academic perspective. The Kabbalah Center is they have outfits all over the world. It's sort of franchises kind of, and they teach a very specific kind of Kabbalah that is tailored toward celebrities, basically. Another of non-celebrities that get into it. It's a form of sort of new age means traditional Kabbalah. But this is made famous by folks like Madonna, and I think Britney Spears was into it for a while, which I think even Britney Spears has a Hebrew tattoo on the back of her neck. Some kind of Kabbalistic tattoo. I don't know whatever sense Kabbalistic tattoos make. But, you go, Britney. I think she's from Mississippi, so I think we're home state people. So good. Me and Britney go back. So people like Britney Spears and Madonna have also embraced Kabbalah in a pretty profound way. And apparently, I think even Madonna quit doing concerts on Friday night because of her commitment to certain kinds of Kabbalistic beliefs. I think that the Material Girl's from here, right? She's from Bay City. Madonna's from Bay City. So the Material Girl's from here. So you have Rebbe Madonna, who has gone on to become influenced very heavily by Kabbalah at some level in her spirituality, although I don't think she's ever converted to Judaism. And there are many other people who've been influenced by the Kabbalah Center. Now, the Kabbalah Center is very polarizing. It's very controversial. I think they've gotten some trouble with money stuff, unsurprisingly. A religious organization getting involved with celebrities and getting in trouble for money stuff. Could you believe that? So the Kabbalah, in many ways, in the 1990s and 2000s, really went pop culture, with a lot of pop culture folks, musicians and other folks becoming really influenced by Kabbalistic ideas, and those ideas becoming very mainstream, right? Very mainstream. Folks, Kabbalah Chai. It's gonna live. Kabbalah is gonna survive us all. It's back. The Kabbalah had gone through a couple thousand years or 1,000 years now of turns and twists and messiahs and dead messiahs and apostate messiahs, and a mountain of books and commentaries. It's really gone through, I think, almost every kind of travail a religion can go through, a philosophy can go through. No philosophy that I can think of has gone through this much. Platonism or communism or whatever. Kabbalah has gone through so much, and it's had to transform and adapt itself. And when I think about the Kabbalah, is that I'm very happy and very glad to be alive now, because we're now living in, at some level, the golden age of Kabbalistic literature. more Kabbalistic literature is available to me than anyone else in history when it comes to accessible information. More Kabbalistic teachers are available. Secular Kabbalistic education is available. You know, a class like this is a completely secular academic class on Kabbalah. Also, you can go to dozens of teachers of Kabbalah to become a Kabbalist. And Kabbalah is accessible to people it was never accessible before. Women, LGBTQ folks, it's accessible in a way that it never was before. And so I say that Kabbalah Chai, Kabbalah lives, and Kabbalah will live, because we are living in an age where the Kabbalah has finally been able to, at some level, withhold its secrets. You have to work hard to become a Kabbalist. You need to learn Hebrew, learn Aramaic. You might have to move to Israel. You might have to move to Brooklyn. You have to do a lot of heavy lifting if you really, really, really want to get into Kabbalah. But you can. It's there. So much of it's on the internet. Right? So much of it you can get via interlibrary alone. You can go buy books right there on Amazon and learn secrets of the Kabbalah that would have been utterly inaccessible to 99% of the Jewish population most of history. And there they are, immediately available. Even English translations of things like the Zohar, with the Pritzker edition of the Zohar, massive 12-volume Pritzker edition. There was no standard English translation of the Zohar prior to that. Not really. And now, for the first time in history, we have access to all 12 volumes of the Zohar, and new things are coming out every day. So we're living in a golden age for the study of Kabbalah, and we're living in a golden age for those who want to be Kabbalists. And I have to say that I'm really happy, and I feel really blessed, and I feel really grateful that all of you have decided to come along with me on this 14-week journey through the history of Kabbalah, because I feel very lucky that I have the privilege and the honor to be able to learn about Kabbalah and share what little I know, and to know that there are people interested in learning about Kabbalah and learning what little I know. And so I just want to thank all of you who've hung out with me over the course of the past 14 weeks to learn some Kabbalah together and learn about Kabbalah and learn that this tradition is beautiful and strange and science fiction-y. It's just all over the place, weird and wonderful. And so I just want to express my deep gratitude for everyone who's dropped in for a class or stayed for all 14 or whatever. I'm just really grateful and really blessed and feel really thankful for everyone who's had the time, who's taken the time to learn some Kabbalah with me, and given me the opportunity to learn more about Kabbalah in the preparation of this class. So that said, thank you. It's really an honor and a privilege to be able to have done this class, and I look forward to learning with all of you soon, whether Kabbalah or not. I'd love to do a Zohar class. It's like my secret desire to do is a big Zohar class, both study Zohar and also study about Zohar. Or we'd have I imagine kind of a class that would be structured like a science class, where you have the lecture and the lab. The lecture would be like this, but then we'd have a lab, and the lab would be like studying the Zohar, studying it. So I imagine that's my dream gig. It's a lecture lab class, and then it'd be Zohar lab, which I have to say is a little more exciting to me than organic chemistry lab. So maybe Zohar lab. So anyway, folks, that's up to the community and up to y'all. Maybe we can do that at some point, but I guess, again, I'll just end with saying thank you, and I'm so happy that folks have come along with me on this journey, and it doesn't end here. I will definitely say that. Like I said, we're not ending with the end of Kabbalah. We're ending with ... because Kabbalah is going to outlive us all. Welcome back.
Yo, thanks, Doug. We're going to continue this stream.
So next time you get any kind of one of these robocalls or going through the menu, this is why I don't have a weapon, because I would literally take a shotgun and blow open my phone. Just put it up there and shoot it with a shotgun. Okay, we're done. Okay, now I want to end it with small private colleges. What is going on with them? They're dying. That's what's going on. I want to share that story with you. But first, let's check in with Amy. KFI News.
Here's the latest. A blockade at the Strait of Hormuz has begun. The U.S. military says it'll be blocking all of Iran's port and coastal areas, but is allowing ships to pass through the waterway if they are traveling between non-Iranian ports. A federal judge in Florida has dismissed President Trump's $10 billion defamation suit against the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch. And Britney Spears has reportedly checked herself into rehab. Those stories and more coming up at the top of the hour. We'll check and see what's slowing you down along the 405 next.
If you are a business person like I am, let me ask you a question. How many brokers does it take to insure your business? Well, the answer generally is too many, because you've got multiple policies, you've got applications, and really no clear picture of how it all actually all fits together. And when something comes up, getting a straight answer, that's not so easy either. So this is where SuperSure comes in. SuperSure gives you one broker for all your business insurance, backed up by a team that's year-round, not just when it's time to making a claim. Don't be left guessing when it matters most. And the fellow who started
For joining me as I explore the garden that is Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. Again, if you'd like to support my work, I'm providing accessible, free, and scholarly content on topics like Kabbalah, alchemy, and the occult, along with magic and hermetic philosophy. Consider supporting my work on Patreon, or perhaps with a one-time donation. You can find those links below. Until next time, I'm Dr. Justin Sledge, and thank you for watching Esoterica, where we explore the arcane in history, philosophy, and religion.
From the Odoo.com Weather Center, Odoo, the only business software you need. Partly cloudy with a chance of showers, highs in the 60s, mainly 50s for the Antelope Valley. This report brought to you by Toro University Worldwide. From your Toyota dealer's traffic center, we make it easy. We've got a crash in West LA on the 405.
405 freeway hits the southbound side right before Sunset Boulevard. A crash just cleared. It's slow from Burbank Boulevard. And that drive on the 405 south from Mission Hills down to the 10 freeway.
The mystical experience is one of profound paradox. It occurs within the profound depths of interiority, and yet it often has totally life-altering effects. It seems to impart a sense of eternal truth, though what it means is often...
And yeah, the southbound 605 starts to slow all the way back from about Rose Hills Road, stays heavy all the way down to the 5 freeway. And if you're headed from Riverside, crash there 215 northbound to Blaine, that drive 215 north from Paris up through Riverside Interchange, just a little over 45 minutes. With Southern California's most accurate traffic reports, a local trucker. Got something to say? Love you. Well, just tap the red talk back mic on the free iHeartRadio app. Requests, contests, or just to say hi.
Hey, this is Heather.
Get your voice on the air fast. I got the way to go down. Open the iHeartRadio app and try it now.
Why's the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, grown-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off to school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
The free iHeartRadio app is #1 for music, radio, and podcasts, all in one. Discover a new podcast from our library of over 350,000 titles. Here's an iHeartRadio podcast preview.
Yes, I need to have an offer to call me. My daughter is missing.
On July 24th, 2016, 23-year-old Kaylee Sawyer vanished from her small Oregon town.
But
But the story of who killed her and how takes wild twists and turns. A second woman kidnapped.
And then that's when he just started basically yelling at me to start driving. He's like, "We have to get out of here." He's like, "Just let someone."
A dramatic carjacking. A high-speed police chase and a murderer's disturbing
music, radio, and podcasts all in one. Records, milestones, firsts, lasts, and everything in between. What happened today in sports history on iHeartRadio? What's happening, fellow sports fans? It's Andy West. Let's look back on this day in sports history, April 13th. We'll start off today back in 1957. The Boston Celtics win their first NBA championship in style, narrowly beating the St. Louis Hawks in a 125-123 double overtime victory. One of the most exciting Game 7s in history. Jumping ahead today in Augusta, Georgia, 1997, the Tiger Woods era begins as Tiger destroys the field and wins his first major championship, a record 12 strokes ahead of runner-up Tom Kite. Woods became the youngest at 21, the first non-white player to win the Masters in the green jacket at Augusta. And today in 2016, Kobe Bryant retires with a bang, scoring 60 points in the Lakers' 101-96 win over the Utah Jazz. Now you know, today in sports history on iHeartRadio. Feels like the first time, but maybe for the second time. Foreigner is working on a new album. It's called The Eye of the Storm, and it's the official soundtrack for the band's 50th anniversary concert film. Yeah, the 50th anniversary. The first single, Feels Like the First Time, features all three of the band's lead vocalists, the original guy, Lou Graham, longtime vocalist Kelly Hansen, and the current frontman, Scott Donato. The song drops this Friday, April 17th. Britney Spears is in rehab. A spokesperson for the singer said she checked into a center, only saying it's somewhere here in the U.S. She did it a few days ago after close to her urged to. Spears was arrested last month in California for DUI. First weekend of Coachella is in the books. Justin Bieber made his debut Saturday night as a headliner with a set that featured a lot of newer music, as well as a YouTube laptop sing-along segment. And Super Mario continues to pound the box office competition. Super Mario Galaxy made over $308 million domestically, more than $628 million worldwide so far, as it sits atop the box office. In second place, Project Hail Mary, in its fourth week, and debuting in third place. The romantic comedy, You Need Me, and Tuscany, starring Halle Bailey. And that's entertainment. I'm Terry Howell. KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. Monday, momentous Monday. You know, that's what I think we're going to call Monday. Some Taco Tuesday, Foodie Friday, Hump Day Wednesday. I think momentous Monday because we start the week with big stories. And no difference this week. We've got the Strait of Hormuz now being blockaded by the United States. Iranian was being blockaded. California Representative Aaron Swalwell is dropping out of the governor's race. Yesterday, the news is that the teacher strike is being averted at LAUSD. So obviously a lot going on. Now, the story I want to share with you about the Wall Street Journal has to do with small colleges across the country. Now, I always thought my idea of going to college would be a small college, let's say, upper northwest, the old buildings, the glass, the trees there, and sort of a great little place to go to school, liberal arts college. That was my idea of college. I went to Cal State Northridge instead. 40,000 students, a lot of concrete, big buildings, office buildings, and not particularly picturesque. Well, all of those colleges, many of them across the country, are going broke. They're disappearing. Colleges today are in deep trouble. Why? We've been telling our kids now that don't go to college, it's too expensive. Now, the big colleges do great. You know, and the SCs of this world, the Berkeleys, are just fine. But it's these small colleges, this little bit of Americana, that's toga parties are just not around. And so you have these small colleges, and one of the reasons why there's no endowment. You know that Harvard has an endowment of, I think, $50 billion. I mean,
both make more money on their endowment than they do with tuition. Small colleges don't have that income. State colleges, for the most part, don't have that income. And so we're seeing something disappearing from America. These small, picturesque liberal arts colleges that have 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 students, which are wonderful. It's where I wanted to go to school, but it turned out that I didn't. So then you have something in common with them. You're not well endowed. Wow. No, what a way to end the show. What a way to end the show. Yeah. Well, here's the difference. At one point, these colleges were well endowed, and now, not so much. But thank you for that. Every once in a while, you come up with stuff that I wish I had said, and it drives me completely crazy. It really does. So, Neil, why don't you take a few weeks off? Or a few months. Yeah, a few months. Matter of fact, I think you're filling in for me next Monday, right? Yeah. Today. Okay. All right, guys, we are done. Gary and Shannon up next. And tomorrow morning on a Taco Tuesday, we start again. Wake up call from 5 to 6 a.m. With Bill and Amy. And then Neil and I are here until 9. And Kono and Ann are always here making the show work as well as it does. That sounds sincere. Sure. And, sort of. All right. Take care, everybody. Tomorrow morning, KFI AM 640, or stimulating what we do in the morning. KFI and KOST HD2, Los Angeles, Orange County, more stimulating talk.
Strike still possible. I'm Amy Q5 from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. The LA School District has reached tentative agreements with 2 of the 3 unions threatening to strike. The deal with the teachers union would boost starting teacher salaries to $77,000, allows for flexible work days and smaller class sizes. The deal with administrators was announced last night. Both deals include 11.65% salary increases over the next 2 years. Negotiations with the 3rd union continue, with the strike moving tomorrow. A joint solidarity agreement means that if the 3rd union can't come to an agreement before the deadline, a strike would still happen that would shut down campuses, the nation's 2nd largest public school district. The district's Board of Education is having a special closed-door session at 10 this morning. Officials are warning parents to be prepared in case there is a strike. News brought to you by Thorson Motor Centers. A blockade of the Strait of Hormuz has begun. The U.S. military said it would be blocking all Iran's ports and coastal areas, but is allowing ships to pass through the waterway if they're traveling between non-Iranian ports. Foreign policy expert Trina Parsi from the Quincy Institute questions what Trump's latest move against Iran would do to the economy.
It's not just Iran that won't be getting out. It means that the war that has been purchased by India, by China, by other countries whose relationship with the United States are crucial, Trump would be going up against those countries.
Parsi says if Trump pursues this, it increases the likelihood that Houthis will close off the Red Sea. That means another 12% of oil that will go to the market, and oil prices could shoot to $200 a barrel. Local gas prices are holding steady as negotiators failed to reach a peace deal in the war in Iran over the weekend. The average price for a gallon of regular gas in LA County is holding at $5.99. It's $5.90 in Orange County, $5.86 in San Bernardino. The national average is $4.13 a gallon. The race to be California's next governor is over for Eric Swalwell following allegations of sexual misconduct.
The congressman from Northern California is facing real threats of lawsuits and criminal charges, and now he says that he's suspending his campaign to be California's next governor.
Money has dried up. Endorsements have dried up. There's no future for him in terms of being the future governor of California.
Sacramento and Democratic strategist Steve Maviglio.
But if you're going to come out fighting, come out fighting. Don't look like you're a hostage in a hotel room.
Maviglio says Swalwell needs to be focused on his life at this point because his political career is basically over. Jason Campadoni at KFI News.
A federal judge in Florida has dismissed President Trump's $10 million defamation lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch. The lawsuit filed in July was over a story of Trump's ties to Jeffrey Epstein. The judge wrote in the order that Trump had failed to make the argument that the article was published with the intent to be malicious, but gave the president a chance to file an amended complaint. Thousands of supporters packed the riverfront in Budapest, Hungary, as Peter Magyar celebrated his victory over Viktor Orban, ending Orban's 16 years in power. Magyar's TISA party also won a two-thirds majority in parliament. Vice President J.D. Vance had urged voters to keep Orban in office, but the leader, allied with President Trump and Russia's President Putin, conceded defeat yesterday. And Britney Spears has reportedly checked herself into rehab following her DUI arrest in Ventura County last month. It's not clear when she checked in, but her last post to Instagram Saturday night was a racy video of her dancing in a sheer bodysuit. Spears was arrested March 4th on suspicion of driving under the influence of a combination of alcohol and drugs. Southland weather from KFI, mix of sun and clouds today. Also see some showers off and on. Got some rain falling in Orange County this morning. Highs in the 60s for most areas, 50s in the Antelope Valley. Clearing off tonight with lows in the 40s and 50s, then back to sunny skies tomorrow. Highs in the 60s at the coast, low 70s for Metro LA and Inland OC, 60s and 70s for the valleys in IE, low 60s in the high desert. It's 58 in Fullerton, 59 in San Clemente, 59 in Santa Monica, and 55 in Pasadena. The Campbell Market Report brought to you by SuperSure, supersure.com. One super agency, one powerful platform. All your business insurance in one place. The Dow is trading off 247 points. The NASDAQ is up 36. The S&P 500 is down 2. We've got a crash in Riverside on the 215.
Right there, people. Lane Street. The center lane is blocked with this crash. It's car and semi. Fire crews there on the scene as well. Traffic's pretty slow back from Alessandro Boulevard. In Santa Ana, wreck on the right shoulder, 55 southbound at McFadden. That's station. Off and on the brakes back from Chapman Avenue. Another crash in South LA, 110 freeway northbound at 51st Street. That blocks the left lane. Traffic pretty slow. Back from Manchester on that stretch of roadway. Cars in Orange County, the 5 and the 55, where they come together there as you get south. It's a bit slow, partly because of the crash I mentioned. Southbound 55 bad, but the 5 is also pretty slow. From 22 pretty much all the way down to the 55. Plus, we had some rain through the south Orange County area. Looks like it's heading on east, but still some wet roadways there. With Southern California's most accurate traffic reports, that will hold true. 2%. That's the number of people who take the stairs over an escalator. I'm Mike Restream. Twice a week on my podcast, 2%. I give you practical advice to live a more meaningful life. Don't ask for it. Don't demand easily. Put yourself through some hardships, and you will come out on the other side a happier, more fulfilled, healthier person. Listen to 2% on America's #1 podcast network, iHeart. Open your free iHeart app and search 2%. That's T-12%. Start listening.
It's a place to share the joy of your team winning it all, and a place to share a laugh about skiing and taking a fall. There's a place to share photos of pets or singing in the choir, or the time you ate a pepper and your mouth was on fire. But we could all be better at sharing how we're feeling inside. 76% of employees struggle with at least one issue that affected their mental health. When you share, you're not alone. Ask about your company's emotional health benefits. Visit heart.org/share. Brought to you by the American Heart Association.
The free iHeartRadio app is #1 for music, radio, and podcasts, all in one. Discover a new podcast from our library of over 350,000 titles. Here's an iHeartRadio podcast preview.
Your party disappears. Everybody's assessment. At Public University in the middle of California, some frustrating that it can't get resolved. We can't make a safer location. However, it's just like any location. There are 1 or 2 people who can destroy someone's life.
Your own backyard. The disappearance of crystals.
Listen and follow this podcast for free on the iHeartRadio app. #1 for music, radio, and podcasts, all in one.
Well, I'm glad that Swalwell got out before the weekend was over. I was thinking, how long is this going to last?
Gary and Shannon, KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
I'm not going to make a lot of friends in the woman department today, but I don't care.
I do have questions about these allegations made against the congressman.
I mean, he's clearly, I heard him referred to on another show today as a sex pig. And it was kind of an offhanded remark, like, well, I guess he's been a sex pig for a long time. And I thought, what a great term, a sex pig. Like I'm not going to call the guy a rapist, because that's not what he is. And all the stories I've heard about Eric Swalwell, and I'm not defending him in any way. But I am trying to give a message to women. You need to take accountability for yourself and your actions and the environment you put yourself in.
There's a point, though, that needs to be made about this guy and other guys. The congressman out of Texas had an affair with the staffer and then committed suicide by burning herself on fire.
Yes.
These are two guys that now are getting a lot of calls, both of them, one Republican, one Democrat, to get ousted from Congress because of their past behaviors. In this case specifically, though, this is a guy, Eric Swalwell, who has had this reputation.
Fuck yeah, everybody. Here we are again. Welcome, everyone. There's a live crowd out there, everybody. How you guys doing tonight? All right, how exciting. Another fun weekend down the drain.
Yep.
What is this, 14?
Something like that. 13 or 14.
13 or 14 Mondays in a row.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I've been doing it, though, for like 50.
Wow.
Sucks. I'm done with Mondays. Mondays are the worst because I have a podcast I do for 3 hours. Right when...
That's a problem. The fact that he has been a sex pig.
You might do.
Let me real quick, just the thing with the Iron Patriot, Comedy Patriot. Can you put your hand up on your forehead like a salute? Can you reach that? God damn, you're like a bodybuilder. You're like The Rock. He can't scratch his own forehead. All right, well, because if he could do that, I thought that'd be like a fun way to, like, whenever he likes a set, give them a salute.
Can you try it again?
Can you do a thumbs up?
I could do this, I could do this, I could do this.
Could you do a thumbs up like I just asked? There you go. Do that.
Okay.
Only the ones you like. And you can be as harsh about it as you want.
I will. Remember picking up the marshmallows, though, and then, like the first couple bowls of the box would have, like, so much marshmallows in your bowl, and then that last bowl, there was, like, 1 or 2 marshmallows.
Yeah, the grainy ones, they would sink to the bottom. Yeah, it was a bummer.
I like the Lucky Charms.
Your next comedian's name is Jem. Everybody, it's Jem.
GEM.
Hi. My name is Jim, that's GEM. I recently was
Hi,
evicted.
medium showing up.
Got me thinking about when I was living in England. That's where I had the longest permanent residence of 48 months. Mostly because even in England, they don't evict you from prison. I've been watching a lot of the Orange and Black recently, also known as the Los Angeles bus system. Yeah. I haven't been going up because I've been dealing with the eviction for the last 2 weeks, so I'm a little rusty at this. I mean, not rusty like if I penetrate you, I'm going to give you tetanus. Chlamydia, yes, but just because the antibiotics didn't take. So what I'm saying I want to get over is 248-952-7290 is my number if you need some medical cannabis. Please feel free to call me. 248-952-7290. 952-7290.
This guy is going to be huge.
Chlamydia, yes, but just because the antibiotics didn't take. So what I'm saying I want to get over is 248, 48 months. Mostly because even in England, they don't evict you from prison. I've been watching a lot of the Orange and Black recently, also known as the Los Angeles bus system. Yeah. I haven't been going up because I've been dealing with the eviction for the last 2 weeks, so I'm a little rusty at this. I mean, not rusty like if I penetrate you, I'm going to give you tetanus. Chlamydia, yes, but just because the antibiotics didn't take. So what I'm saying I want to get over is 248-952-7290 is my number if you need some medical cannabis. Please feel free to call me. 7290. That's GEM. Thank you very much.
So you never intended to do stand-up comedy, you just faked it until you got to the phone number to call for cannabis.
I'm calling for a
Was that a
West Hollywood band. Because now you have to make me fucking edit out a fucking phone number and make me do work.
Oh, poor Brian.
Is that a real phone number?
Thanks a lot, Dick.
Well, this is turning ugly. What? So you keep standing there like you're looking confused. What did you just do? Did you attempt some jokes? You attempted some jokes. I didn't make a phone number for a place you actually work for.
No, that's my number. Oh, that seems like a great
This is your home number?
No, I only have a phone. I mean, I don't have a home, so I got a business, so I don't even, I want to sell some weed, so I get a new place to motherfucking live, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
now I'm getting it.
Okay, cool.
Jesus, so yelling.
I see the movie, though, super hot.
Security, comedy, Patriot.
It was much better than that guy that took your idea and did that super size me thing. That got Morgan Spurlock who stole your idea. It was much better than that.
That's a fun twist you put on that. But seriously, if someone calls you at that number and you can buy some weed, sell them weed, but you're not a dispensary or
why am I not? Of course I'm a dispensary.
You are?
Yeah, anybody that needs weed, I will dispense it to them.
This guy really got into his stride during the back and forth portion, as opposed to the actual stand-up.
What if somebody that listens to this, because people around the world listen to this?
I will ship it anywhere in the United States. Ship it out right there. I mean, how are they going to catch me? I don't have anywhere to live, so I'm just roaming the streets, you know? They call me.
Do you want to be a stand-up comedian?
Huh?
I mean, all they would have to do if they did.
What do you mean? I'm standing up here. I'm making you laugh even. Come on. You're laughing out there.
I'm kind of laughing at
Why are you
when
saying
I'm
that?
thinking
Why
about
are
what
you
you're
saying
saying.
Why are you saying that, though, really?
I'm just saying.
You did like either one of those 3 jokes? I did do 3 jokes.
You did. Let's let the Patriot handle this.
A little backstory on this guy. He went to jail for 2 years for selling Molly over in Europe.
35 months, actually.
See, I thought there was some truth to that story, and that's why the first thing I asked you is what the fuck would just happen? Like, because I don't know what's real and what isn't. And you guys have seen him before?
Yes.
Yeah. 5th time.
I don't know if it's many times. I think it's been twice.
5th.
3 or 4.
He says 5 times, Tony.
Jesus Christ, Jen, we got to take a break with you, buddy. I didn't know that was happening. I don't think anybody's ever gotten on.
Oh, it can't be the same person week after week after week.
And you don't use this. I've been skipping weeks. I've been skipping weeks. You don't use this show as a commercial, man. You don't give your phone number out because I have to edit it out.
Yeah, real bummer.
I mean, there's like responsibilities.
Or because he might leave it in. You'll get some fucked up calls if he leaves it in.
Oh yeah, half of me wants to just leave it in.
He's saying leave it in because he knows it might be somebody who wants to buy some.
Yeah, I got some weed.
But it doesn't sound terribly legit. It doesn't sound like,
you know what I'm saying? I got some weed. You know, if you want to buy some weed, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that's not.
I know.
That's still not legal in California.
I know. Whatever.
Doing it that way, you got to start a dispensary.
Thanks for wasting my time.
There he goes, everybody. Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Selling pot, obviously. Really hot stock right now to get in the pot selling market.
It just reminds me of that expression that I now think is absolutely true. They can't all be gems. That's what people say.
So
like
true.
that's a standard line when the joke doesn't work.
Oh, I know this lovely lady. I do believe this is her first time performing here. Her name is Courtney Mollet.
Hello. So I've noticed a lot of people in this town are flakes. It's like all my friends keep telling me that they're gonna kill themselves and then they don't. So it just makes, like, how am I supposed to trust them after that, you know? Also, I'm from, like, a really, really small town where pretty much everyone is related. So it just makes me wonder, like, is it still incest if it's your 6th cousin in a row? You know? I guess after, like, the 4th and 5th, you just kind of stop counting. Okay. Also, my boyfriend just dumped me while I was in the shower, I think to avoid an argument. So I got out anyways. I was like, I've had it up to here
imagination.